right. I am going to call the regular meeting of the Cedar Springs City Council to order Thursday, July 14th, 2022 at 7:03 p.m. If you feel so inclined, please rise and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, where's some chairs over here, huh? I will call I will call the roll. Miss Atchison.
Here.
Mr. Gross.
Here.
Ms. Hamel.
Present.
Ms. Nixon.
Here.
Ms. Powell.
Here.
Ms. Race.
Here.
Mayor Conley is here. At this time, actually, just before we do the public comment, I have because there seems to have been some question in our previous meetings about whether or not we have some people that are being represented by an attorney. And I have a letter from the attorney, and I'm just going to read the opening paragraph so that we are clear on exactly what it is that is happening. And it says, from Varnum Attorneys at Law, Sarah L. Wilson, and it is to address to the Cedar Springs City Council. Attention, all of us listed by name. Dear City Council, please be advised the Varnum LLP represents the following owners of multifamily properties, multifamily dwellings in Cedar Springs: Green Properties North LLC, Green Properties West LLC, James Hofstra, Lawrence and Audrey Young Jr., Dan Spitzbergen, Wolf Rental Properties LLC, CC Main Street Properties LLC, and Cedar Rock Properties LLC, collectively the property owners. As you're likely aware, the original portion of the Cedar Springs was built, I don't need to go into the whole thing, but they are absolutely being represented by, and they specifically tell us that they are going to be communicating with counsel. Please be advised that if you are represented by legal counsel, your counsel will communicate with said counsel moving forward. We have counsel. They have counsel. Our counsel talks to their counsel unless they dismiss their counsel. So just to clarify, because that seems to have been some question about that. Mr. Manager, do you have any little piece to add to that before we head into public comment?
I believe that's a fair recitation of facts.
Okay, so, and it's in our email, and the discussion that we have with our counsel is not subject to Open Meetings Act, but the directive that they give to us in email from their counsel saying they've retained counsel is absolutely open for public structure. All right, moving on, public comments. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment and public hearing portions of the agenda. However, council policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If after communicating with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concern will be elevated to the mayor and then eventually to the council for action. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like, and if you would like us to respond. Public hearings. Do I have any, or before we move on to public hearings, do I have anybody who would like to address the council at this time?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Frank Lafada. I am running for your state representative in District 91. And I'm here tonight to introduce myself. I'm running on infrastructure, and I see that you have a situation with PFA. Our state's spending $140 million, I think it was last year, just for this situation. I want to help So that's why I'm running for infrastructure. I'm a union carpenter. I worked on infrastructure. Built bridges. I built power plants, nuclear plants. I worked in, so I know infrastructure. So I want to get this infrastructure money to our community, since our representatives are not doing anything for us in our community. So I know Montcalm has an issue, and that's part of 91. I was even up to counties in the north, and they're having problem with lead and everything else. So that's why I'm running. If you have any comments or concerns, you can get a hold of me on my email. I gave you a card, and you can look at my website for.
Anyone have any
Right.
questions for Mr. LaFava? And just to clarify, the new 91 that we are part of is like goes into Montcalm County and goes over into a splash of Ionia County. And then this little edge of Kent County. And Mr. LaFava, you live in Greenville?
Yes, I live in Montcalm County. I've been there for 30 years, so I know this community.
So we thank you. Thank you for coming to talk to us tonight.
Thank you for your time,
Appreciate it.
Councilman.
No. Oh, okay.
I just sliced my elbow on the edge of the table. It's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Do I have anyone else who would like to speak?
Can I just get the date of that letter that you referenced, please?
Sure. May 9th?
May 9th, okay, and that was in response to the letter that they sent, okay, thank you. Good evening. Several months ago, Katie and Derek came to you at a council meeting regarding their confusion and frustration on learning that you were mandating their newly purchased multifamily property. And first, I'd just like to say that Tim and I are both speaking, please, okay, thank you. Which has been used as a multifamily property for over 40 years. And you were telling them that they had to immediately convert that back to a single family house. To me, the council seemed equally confused and expressed a desire to correct this situation. And you asked for us to be patient and to allow you time to work through things. I was optimistic. However, it wasn't on the city council agenda the following 2 months for either discussion or updates. I was concerned and wondering why. Then when I heard your employees say at a council meeting that he was ready to move forward and take us to court, I and others realized things were moving in a different direction. We needed to seek legal clarification and advice to protect our properties. Attorney Sarah Wixom was asked to write you a letter, as referenced in your notes, on behalf of us, explaining the legal basis of our concerns. We, like you, have an attorney on a retainer basis. We are trying to settle this with you. Our attorney is fully aware of that and supporting us in that. If litigation is necessary, we will be forced to respond with legal counsel. We wrote 3 letters directly to you, providing documentation, sworn statements from 2 of the 3 living 1982 Council and Planning Commission members, and our plea for your help with answers as a council as to why you were doing this to us and the legal basis you were using. We also asked, how is the city benefiting from this? The question still remains. Why is the city attempting to devalue our properties by mandating we convert them back to single-family homes and/or mandating that we comply with new construction regulations when these properties are grandfathered in as a legal non-conforming use? Why is the city reducing safe, affordable housing for our residents? It was originally stated if owners could prove these properties existed prior to the 1982 ordinance, they would be allowed. Then it appeared this was no longer an option, perhaps due to the difficulty or even impossibility of proving a multifamily home was converted prior to 1982. We're looking at 40 years ago. Our sworn statements, property description cards, regular rental inspections, proof enough? Were zoning and building permits even required back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that we can present to you as proof? Tim and I did not initially receive a letter of violation last January for a duplex we've owned since the late 70s, even after I reached out to the zoning enforcement officer twice. After I mentioned this to a city councilor, I received a letter within days, 5 months after everyone else. Why didn't the city know this was a duplex? Why haven't the originally constructed 4-unit owners been cited? These 4-unit property owners don't have proof or permits. How are they different than ours? So here we are, 7 months after receiving the violation letter from your zoning administrator. We still can't sell our properties as multifamilies. Katie and Derek still can't rent out their apartments. Chris still can't repair his duplex. And we have invested in these Cedar Springs properties to make them an asset to our city and to provide a service for our community members. Now, why do you want to devalue them and reduce the options?
You're at 4 minutes.
If you adopt the swimming pool ordinance tonight, are you telling those property owners with a pool that they must convert to current regulations? Or perhaps wait 40 years and tell them they have to convert to current regulations? I don't think anybody wants to be or likes to be bullied, stereotyped, or dismissed. Unfortunately, I feel this matter has been continually dismissed. Don't you? Please remember, you are in charge here. It is your name on the city council minutes. It is your name on court papers. It is your legacy. If you believe this course of action is justified, legal, and ethical, then you must proceed. But if you don't, and deep down inside, I don't think you do, then you have a responsibility to stop it. I will stand by my community members and my friends because I do not believe these actions are justified, legal, or ethical. If a judge or jury has to decide this on taxpayers' money, then so be it. That's your call. However, I am going to remain hopeful that our locally elected officials, each of you, are people of integrity, intelligence, and compassion with a sincere commitment to all of our community. Let's not play this out on social media or divide our community, but please accept these properties as legal non-conforming properties as they stand. No mandated paved or concrete driveways, fancy landscaping, or storage buildings. They are pre-existing legal non-conforming properties. Continue to inspect them for safety and maintenance as you have been doing. And then moving forward, we all know that multifamilies aren't allowed in R1. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cammie. I'm from the Cedar Springs Public Library. And I'd like to tell you what happened at your library during the month of June. So for kiddos 0 to pre-K, there were 137 that signed up for the summer reading program. There were 95 kids and 55 adults that attended story time. For elementary age kiddos, there were 485 that signed up for summer reading. We attended the Cedar Springs Public School Literacy Day at summer camp, and there were 150 participants.
Wow. We
We had 25 come through the escape room. We had 22 kids and 11 adults from CTA. For teens and tweens, we have 66 sign up for summer reading and 23 go through the escape room. For families, there were 229 take and make kits handed out. There were 126 participants in the I Spy Aquarium. There were 46 kids and 18 adults that attended the comic art program. 104 kids and 61 adults came to the Animal Magic Show. For adults, there were 307 that signed up for summer reading, 5 attended book club, 22 blood donors, 4 at writers group, 5 through the escape room, and 60 attended the fabric art. So it was a busy month.
I guess. Woo. Anything else for continuing on with the summer reading program or?
Summer reading, you still have 2 more weeks. So if you've not signed up for summer reading, you still can. You can log minutes all the way back to the beginning of the program. So even if you haven't signed up yet, you still can, and those points will count towards prizes. We have several things still coming up that you don't need to sign up for. The superhero and princess picnic is open to everyone. And the summer celebration for the end of the year, foam party and water. So come and enjoy. And the city manager's sidewalk chalk is this Saturday
At what time?
from 11 to 1.
And we don't need to bring chalk. You have.
You
chalk?
do not. We have chalk
Okay, the mayor
and-
is going to try to
and prizes.
and look at all the wonderful artwork.
Sounds good.
Okay.
See you
fabulous.
then.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sonia Cronkite, just again, addressing the multifamily issue that's been talked about. Not all of us are on your list from Miss Dixon or whatever her name is, the lawyer. So
Wilson.
Miss Wilson, she doesn't represent all of us that are in the room tonight. But in the beginning, when this happened, we were told this was a zoning issue. And when we tried to defend ourselves and talk about all of the circumstantial evidence that the city has regarding the inspections and all of those processes that we have to go through, it was insisted that this was a zoning issue, not a code issue. So then you asked for us to prove that these properties were existing before 1982, and a lot of us have done that. Then you asked us, the goalpost moved, and you asked us to provide proof that they were legally done. You had 3 signed sworn letters from people, your predecessors who served before you, that have stated their intention as a city was to grandfather these in. Those are 3, and those were the only 3 living people that we could find. And to me, I just feel like that was the proof that your city itself said that these were legal non-conforming, and that was their intention when they created the zoning back in 1982. Some of those people are sitting in the room. Then the goalpost moved again. And to shorten this, the goalpost has moved about 5 times. And the last information that I saw on this is now it's not a zoning issue, it's a regulation issue, which was the very first conversation that we had when we started talking about this, and we were corrected in saying it's not a regulation issue, which we have a code enforcement process that we have to abide by in order to deal with those issues. I know you've been shown pictures of code violations and you've been made to feel like your community isn't safe. I've heard it many times. But what you haven't been told is that many of those code issues have been dealt with and they're no longer code issues. So you need to get the whole story. And Molly Nixon, you're the one who sat here and said that nobody's going to tell you that you can't mow your driveway. And that's the very reason why you're sitting in that seat today, is because somebody tried to tell you that you had to bring your driveway up to a certain standard. And that's what you're doing to us. And it just seems a bit, I don't know how to say it nicely, but hypocritical to me to say that you don't have to, you're next. This is a precedent that's being set. So I was hoping when you came to this board that you were going to fix that issue, which were ordinances that were written that nobody could meet. That was the whole reason you came here. That was the whole reason I supported you fully. And now it's like you're doing it to us. I don't understand. So the goalpost has moved again. And it feels like we're just trying to hit this moving target for this unprecedented opportunity that's been created. Thank you.
3 seconds. to-
So I guess we're just asking, put yourself in our shoes. Because I get it. I get why you're sitting there. I totally get it. I just would hope that you would see it from our point of view. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Chris Conflitti, and just want to please ask again for you guys to move forward on the multifamily issue. I appreciate the other comments, and Sue, I thought that was great and very to the point. And my understanding too is there's not an active lawsuit. There's no active litigation. Of course, the city has an attorney that they're welcome to consult and retain at any time, just like we would be able to. But there's no,
Hire an attorney is like on the moment. We have an attorney.
right, so it could both ways, it should go, but there's no lawsuit. So we keep asking the city council to move forward. We've been asking for months and months to move forward with this. These properties, we have shown that they should be grandfathered in. Another kind of example of precedent that couldn't be set is just another neighbor in town. You know, we were discussing some of this issues with, and you know, their garage goes right to a property line. So that we were discussing that, and I said, there's new ordinances, there's setbacks where the garage or the house has to be so many feet off the lot line. So I was like, if the city council goes after us, and this issue will not grandfather these parcels that have been there for years and years and years, I was like, that means like you might have to rip your garage down. And the people are like, oh, well, that would be crazy. That garage has been there forever. You know, why would they make us do that? I feel like this is the same situation, and the dangerous precedent that is on the fence. So we're asking you, you guys asked us to provide the proof. We feel like we've done that. We need a decision one way or the other. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Derek Ladishkin. Pretty familiar face by now, I'm sure. I just want to read on June 17th, Sarah responded back, "My clients are hopeful that this matter will be resolved without litigation, as they stated in their most recent correspondence to the city council." And that's our letters, right? We haven't filed a lawsuit. There's no lawsuit. We wanted this to be done without litigation. And as far as the goalpost being moved, one thing that really wasn't, it was kind of touched upon. The safety issue, I'm a little confused by it because the city sets up a rental inspection program that all these units follow. They're all inspected based off of the city's own inspection program. And we can't get a new rental agreement if something fails. It needs to be brought up to code by the inspectors. And this is above and beyond all the other areas. No surrounding city, as Sue had pointed out, has an inspection program for the multifamily units. So that was just talking about, it went from the letter, the zoning issue to the safety issue, and now it's a code issue. And that's just kind of confusing to me at this point. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I will move on to, we don't have any public hearings, correct? We do.
There are not, but there are a couple people on
Oh.
Zoom if you'd like to ask. if they-
Yes, please, if we have folks on Zoom who would like to have public comment. And please note that that is absolutely a thing we continue to have people do, that we are still available to Zoom in, that you can watch our meetings on Zoom. And you can have public comment and participate in our meetings on Zoom, and our meetings continue to be recorded and are available on YouTube. They live there. So if you come and scream and yell, that will live there. Do we have anyone?
I don't see anybody.
Okay,
Nobody's
then,
here.
no public hearings, correct?
Correct.
Like we have a public hearings line, but then there's nothing in it. So at this time, I will take a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have anything we need to? I know we've had some stuff in flux. I came to you with some specific things I wanted addressed, and I don't know if anyone else did.
So I did put 2 notes here, which is, there's a patch of bad asphalt out in front of the high school. I've been trying to figure out a way to get that taken care of. We've got a number of, projects going on in the community at this time, but I don't have a price to fix the asphalt yet.
Okay.
I'm hoping that by getting one of the contractors that's already in the community, that will save at least 10% on the mobilization factor.
Sure.
So I don't know how you guys want to handle that, because, it could be as easy as, oh yeah, we can start tomorrow, But now there's potential for a $10,000 or $15,000 bill, which is above my spending limit. I don't know if you want to come back to you guys for approval or how you want to deal with it. It's just something I'm trying to take care of, kind of.
What do you all have thoughts?
Can we add that to an action item?
We can, if you feel like it's okay.
Well, I mean, if we add it to an action item and decide not to take action on it, it'll be fine, but at least it's found a spot, right?
We can add that to,
It would be
E.
7E.
Do we need to expedite it? Is there a,
Yes, we can have that.
Well, the idea is if we have other people already doing asphalt, we can get a discount. We could set like a price not to exceed. I mean, we can
get there.
talk about it when we
Yeah,
get there. And if you
absolutely.
don't feel like it's a good idea, that's part of why I'm asking.
Yep.
So I'm gonna call it, asphalt correction, asphalt.
front of the high school, sure.
are we gonna run a water pipe or something across that road by the high school?
So currently and that's the reason this came up, is we
Mhm.
have a 12-inch water line that's being run along the driveway of the high school. And so I thought that those guys who are gonna be doing the patchwork there would be able to just do the extra work.
Right.
But Mr. LaRose is dealing with like 3 or 4 other contractors,
Yeah.
so we're gonna get the best price.
Yes.
That's the whole, I mean, we have the bridge people and,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's all of the things.
Yes.
All right, anything else?
The other thing I'd like to add for discussion is the possible, purchase of the 7476 North Second Street property.
Are you talking about next to the brewery?
Yeah.
I don't think we can. I can't speak to
Council's
it, but
prerogative.
no, my understanding is it's been sold. That's my understanding, but
Operators in the room, if you,
I don't know. I heard that from a different party.
It's kind of been in flux for a long time.
That's what I was told I was told that this morning. So,
Then we don't have any need to discuss.
I mean, I don't know that we can discuss the purchase of it if it's
Okay.
not for sale.
Indeed, right.
So that was am I accurate in that understanding? Okay, that
Okay.
is my understanding.
Okay,
So
that's good to know.
anything else then? All right, then I will take a motion to adopt the agenda
I'll make that motion.
with the addition of E. And you've got that. Mhm. Do I have a second?
I would second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? We have an agenda.
Madam Mayor, I forgot to announce this at the end of the meeting. I happen to be on call tonight until 10 o'clock. So if you see me checking the phone, I'm a hospice nurse, and so that is my work phone. I'm not texting during the meeting.
And I should have probably, because Ms. Nixon notified me of that before the meeting and said I'm on call, and I get it, hospice nurse. I hear that's a thing. So I don't know. You could be with us
For
or you could be
clarification, I just didn't want someone to think
helping
I'm.
someone who's exceedingly ill.
Yes.
So I don't know. We're so much more exciting or not. Okay. So thank you for telling us, Ms. Nixon. And absolutely, if you need to leave at any point, you will be excused. Consent agenda. Council members may request that any or all items be removed from the consent agenda. A motion is then in order to adopt all items not removed from the consent agenda. Requesting that removal of an item from the consent agenda is a prerogative afforded each council member and does not require the support of other council members.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion. We accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? I'll take a roll call since there is some funding involved on this. Ms. Atchison?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Ms. Hamel?
Yes.
Ms. Nixon?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes.
Ms. Race?
Yes.
And Mayor Conley votes yes. We have a consent agenda. Action items. Moving on. Item A, motion to approve ordinance 241, an ordinance to amend section 32556 pertaining to the swimming pools of chapter 32 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs. The proposed ordinance modifies and sets standards for swimming pools for the City of Cedar Springs. Second reading. And by the way, the Planning Commission put some work into this, so
That one I was.
not there, not when you were
No,
there. I was gonna
that was
thank you
before
for-
me,
just
So
before you.
appreciate
Okay.
it.
Do I have a motion? Do you have any, well, first off, Mr. Manager, do you have anything you want to add on it?
Basically codifying into local law what is already state law.
And
Madam
it's
Mayor,
mostly about safety things. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion. We adopt under action items, item A as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? All right. It doesn't take money, so let's do, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to item B, motion to approve the proposed license agreement with James R. Koval, the property owner at 13590 White Creek Avenue, and authorize the mayor to sign that agreement on behalf of the City of Cedar Springs. Map of licensed property is in the packet. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the license agreement with the Covals.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I have one question.
Sure.
Under section grant, one, grant removal license. Section A, it makes one comment, it can be for sports games with family members. Is that sufficient enough to keep them from bringing general public in there to use the property also?
I mean, we can't detail everything on the planet under the sun that we could or could not allow them to do. I think the basic gist is we don't want them commercializing it or industrializing. it. So I think residential purposes, we're not gonna say can't have a family friend over. If the kids wanna bring their, friends over to run in circles, there's no reason they couldn't do that. The basic gist is to prevent them from using the property inappropriately.
I guess my children, friends wouldn't be the problem. They have adult children that may or may not decide to have a party at mom and dad's house and utilize that property. So, and again, I don't have a problem with them using it either, as long as everything is controlled. And there's a lot of other things in this agreement that would allow that. So I was just wondering if that alone was enough to prevent it from happening.
I mean, I wrote it to be most favorable to the city. I'm not opposed to if you want to propose additional language, which could be added in. And then we could modify it and propose it at that point.
And that would be up to the council. I guess I don't have a problem with it because I feel there is a disclaimer of a sort with that comment. I just didn't know way as attorneys would look at it, how that would be seen.
So, as we've discussed in the past, the difficulty here is that the Cobles don't seem willing to put in the effort on their own behalf to assist us in giving them the ability to use our property. So I did this on my time. I don't want to have to pay the city attorney to draft this language. Of course, you know, I use my skill set as an attorney to do it, but it depends on how much money the city council wants to spend on doing a favor for, you know, a township member.
I felt it was a good document. I felt it was thorough, okay? I was just wanting to know about use and control of it as far as the number of people, so that's all. Would I object to approving it the way it is? No, I just wanted to know if there was a control factor issued in with that statement, so.
I don't think so, but I'm open to any changes of language offered.
See what the rest of the board says.
Okay, thoughts? Ms. Powell?
Did you speak to the Cobles yet? Have they?
We've tried contacting them, I think, twice since your last meeting, and neither time have they responded back.
Okay.
And to be clear, this isn't for like a large sum of money.
This license would be essentially for free. The difficulty is in purchasing the property. I see this as a kind of a meeting ground.
Sure. But we're basically saying, we're letting you use this for free. This is a license that we're giving you for as long as we own it. For, I don't know, what is the time frame of the contract?
I think it's a renewing on a yearly.
On a
basis.
year? Yeah, so I mean, this is,
Plus, we can dissolve the agreement at any time.
right, so should it become problematic?
The fact that it was required to have, I believe it was $1 million of insurance. There is some cost to them to provide that insurance. So we can't say it's totally free for their use because it was something they have to have coverage to both cover themselves and then the city. So
Right, but they're not paying us. It's not for consideration to the city.
I'm just saying there is a cost to them for doing this.
I guess I don't really understand what the point of this is, honestly.
To be completely honest, I don't think we should do it. But this is something that council members have asked me to explore. And so instead of spending the public's money to hire an attorney to draft it for them, because
No, I get that, but why wouldn't we just say you can't use it? Cause if you're not willing to talk to us, then why? Like,
Well-
what is the point?
because after we do that is when the Cobles will decide to come in and say, woe is me, and we need to use your property.
They did come in with some posters.
The motion itself was to bring it to the point where we could discuss it.
There's a motion on the
Well,
table to
The vote will
approve
make
this
a
contract.
determination.
So, as I've heard from several people now, they can't legally own a parcel that's that deep or a dwelling that's on a property that's that deep by state law, so they can't legally buy it. Is that
Well-
correct?
Oh, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Again, in discussions I've had with them in the now distant past,
Uh-huh.
they claim that a cousin's friend's attorney said that it was totally okay.
Okay.
I said, please present me with evidence to support that, and I've never received any such, information. So if they want to attempt to buy it, they're gonna need to provide evidence to show that it is legal for them to do so. They're gonna have to pay their own attorney, their own real estate agent, we're gonna need a legal survey to show what they're proposing to buy. And all things that they have indicated in the past that they're not willing to do.
Okay.
So why all this extra though? That's what I literally don't get it.
So what we're doing here is basically a no cost option, because I did it. To say, okay, we'll let you use the property, we can't let you buy it.
That's what I'm saying. Why are we saying you're allowed to use the property? Why?
because
for
they
what reason?
Requested it.
And
Okay,
they live next door to it.
We have to move on and make
okay.
a determination on it. So,
Okay.
Ms. Atchison,
So you're not gonna, we're okaying this agreement
you're not gonna go out to their thing and out to their house and say, here. You're waiting for them to come back to you.
Well, I mean, we can contact them a third time.
Right.
And I'm sure that
I will.
now that they're getting what they want.
All right, let's vote.
So just to conclude, this is part of the property that we have put out to a marketing company to sell. And the point at which that it is actually sold, this ceases to be a thing. So what we're basically saying is you can use this for your personal yard extension until we sell it. That's what we're saying.
So long as you have proper insurance.
As long as you have proper insurance. And we've let the flying club use property out there. We've let a farmer that grew barley, I think, out.
Offer to do so.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a variety of different, there's precedent for a private citizen using that property. It's not a unprecedented thing. But at the same time, we're doing it as basically, you live next door, we're letting you use it as long as you're insured. So any other questions before we vote? Okay, so we are voting, there's a motion, there's a second, and the motion is to approve this license agreement that would allow the Covels to do this. Mr. Gross,
No.
Ms. Race,
No.
Ms. Hamel,
No.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Atchison.
No.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
and Ms. Conley votes yes. I believe it
The noes
goes
have it.
down 4-3. Thank you for your time and effort on that, Mr. Manager. I will be clear that the manager also spoke to me and told me that he really didn't think this was in the city's best interest, but that he was trying to be helpful per the request of council members and per the request of a citizen. So I appreciate your work on that for something we didn't do. All right, moving on. Motion to approve the professional services agreement with Fishbeck Engineering to undertake the remedial investigative activities as required by Eagle for a cost not to exceed $202,000.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? This is one of those thou must, and as awful as $200,000 sounds, it's actually less than what we thought it was gonna be. So we can test to prove that we don't have a thing that we so far have tested we don't have. Any other discussion? No. All right, Mr. Gross.
Did we,
Oh, do I not? I thought I had a motion. Don't I have a motion in a second?
yes,
Okay, Mr. Gross,
yes,
then Miss Race.
Yes.
yes.
We're voting. We're voting on the motion.
Voting
Wait a second.
to
To
allow them
approve
to
the.
allow-
Eagle, to
Yes, I
pay
like
Eagle
what's
to go
going
drill
on
wells.
Get
I
the
really
test
like
wells.
this again.
Okay. Do you want me to go alphabetical?
Yes,
I was
please.
going
Yes,
down,
please
the
do that
okay,
if you
I
got
was going down the list. I didn't have it
We
in
don't
front
know
of
our
me.
names.
Miss Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes,
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Ms. Race.
Yes.
Mayor Conley votes yes. I was going left to right instead of alphabetical. Silly me. All right, moving on. And thank you to Fishbeck, by the way, as much as this has been frustrating to have to try to prove a negative, I really think we have some amazing engineers. You all will remember our meetings that we've had with them, and Fishbeck has been working for the city for a really long time, I don't even know how long. Yeah, so 30 years. So they're highly capable, highly skilled people, and I really appreciate that they're the ones who are implementing this for us. All right,
May I ask a question?
sure.
Will these wells start before winter while the weather's good?
No.
The anticipation is to get started as soon as possible.
Okay.
Whatever they decide.
It's very hard getting any kind of construction work of any kind.
So it's, Motion to approve June 30th, 2022 infrastructure alternatives, INC, continued wastewater operations, maintenance and management proposal. Woohoo!
We
Do I-
have Mr. Osborne, if you'd like to.
I was gonna say, I do, do you want me to take the motion or do you want me to have, do you have stuff to tell us first?
Yeah, thank you for all your approving and coming out for tours, and I'd love to have you again. I really like that. And then I can show you what's up and coming. Of course, running into things, influent pump went down and normally I have redundancy, through your approvals, but it was in the past, I have two influent pumps and they alternate. Well, when one goes down, let's just say the motor's normally 3 weeks out and I'm okay with that. Well, now it's 9 months out, the fear of that. And so thank the Lord, you guys approved that one and I got the other one fixed by Fixall. He was able to fix the bottom and that's an original pump, original motor to the
Oh,
plant, but because of the maintenance, I run off a task manager, but we
this
haven't,
is all proprietary, right?
correct. Oh, yeah, absolutely,
I
absolutely.
can't like go to Meyer and
I-
buy one of these off the shelf.
No. And the prices, everything is, the supply and demand's ridiculous and you all know what's going on right now. But we hired a young gal named Kaylee Arver, and she is a top-notch little scientist. Just, one of the best hires we've ever had. And so she's out at the plant. And I think I don't know,
Where's your degree from?
I forget when she went to college, but she's come in and within, I don't know, 4 months, basically has the knowledge of me at years. And I mean, I'm like, yes, please. I mean, and she's just a breath of fresh air. And just wonderful. But yeah, so our proposal is like 5 years. It's an increase from the 115 to the 145. Of course, we have been basically breaking even. This was our original infrastructure's original voyage was Cedar Springs. It was get us on the map and we love our relationship with you folks. I just looking forward to having you out again and just gave a tour today. What'd you think? He designed it and then he never got to go in it, did you?
I'd love to have people go tour. If the general public who are watching on YouTube would like to come and have a tour, what would be a way that they would schedule that with you?
Through city manager.
Yeah, so we've tried to do that in the past and nobody shows up.
Oh, we've done like school tours and
Yeah, I've had a microbiology tour through Dr. Palon Sue, who is GVSU. I don't know, did you see any of those pictures?
I did.
Oh,
yes.
cool.
Yeah, she's
yeah.
Dr. Palon Sue is a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
That's how we got connected. I heard about her grant that was doing that. And I said, could you please put my city onto your grant?
Yeah, and then so they come through these microbiologists and the highest, smartest kids in the class and
Yeah, she-
they were asking some good questions. I'm like, I think I knew maybe one of the answers. Yeah,
she
no,
has
it
a
was pretty
grant
good.
Doing it.
What's that?
It's your grad student.
Yeah, it is. And they're all fabulous and yeah, oh, there was other doctors as well. And so yeah, it's been a great great deal and you get to see the results and the results looks like they're going up,
Right.
and
We're
that's
testing
it.
for COVID.
Yeah,
You all get those in your email. So that was Dr. Palon Sue is a friend of mine.
You're the only person who's seeing those results. right now.
Oh,
You can
okay.
send them to everybody, but
Please send them. Please send them. I was gonna say they're posted on Eagle's website.
you were the only one interested at the time, I thought.
Okay. So Dr. Palon Sue, I guess we should talk because I feel like we've talked about this at council, but Dr. Palon Sue is a microbiologist and they have a grant to do wastewater testing. They're doing it at Michigan State. They're doing it at at Kentwood High School, they're doing it at, they have a whole list of places. And then they're testing the wastewater for COVID levels as part of tracking it for public health. And then they're posting it through Eagle at a state website, and it's free. It doesn't cost us anything other than it requires the effort of our water treatment people.
Yeah.
But when she told me that they were doing this, I said, could you please include us? Because it tells me about the health of our community. And the levels are starting to climb again.
And
They
500 mil.
started to drop.
Yeah, not that I've seen, they're going up and.
Well, there was a while ago.
You're not so bad, but in Grand Rapids and Byron Center, they're going way up. I talk to her for a while every time she comes in, and she's really, really nice person. I really,
Have 5 sites at Michigan State on
Oh.
campus.
do they?
Yeah, if you look at the state website, they have all of the numbers listed and you can track it. You can see what's happening across the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice folks, and yep, so much appreciated. And it's 500 mil samples for a year and a half per week.
Super appreciate that you all
Yeah.
are doing that.
I gotcha. And like Thanksgiving, we work every day anyway, so it's, we're there and I'm taking the influence samples every day, so. But Jenny, do you want to say something about yourself? Okay, no, thank.
Jenny.
She,
Okay, good.
what do you do for infrastructure? Uh, She's a wonderful addition to the II team. And Brad?
I'm Brad Lyons. I head up the engineering and technical services. that we- that Gary mentioned. Many years ago, I worked for Fishback. I was the design engineer for the start of the project, not the finish of the project. The others that came before.
He went right to the prince and he's like, nope, they didn't give me the credit.
Well, and we have
Bless
a
his
lot
heart.
to be thankful for the forward looking aspect of you and Jerry Hall and the people that really, because I talked to 2 council members from another community. I won't say the name of them, but they're in a serious, they have a lagoon issue and they're trying to figure out how to solve it. And they're looking at millions and millions of dollars. And they're like, what did you do? And I'm like, well, 30 years ago, we built a water treatment plant.
This was a very progressive facility at the time. And it was intended to do biological nutrient production, which is exactly what Gary's done. And your community has some real challenges with it, because of the cold water infiltration and temperature issue. So it was a challenge, but it's well operated, and you folks have done a remarkable job of supporting it. There's a lot of communities that spend money, put a couple $1 million into a plant, and then they ignore it. And you see that fairly quickly, but it starts to deteriorate because it is a wastewater application. But in your case, you have been very successful in supporting that, helping Gary to have the funding to maintain it, and you've got a long time. So kudos to you.
We have a lot of Jerry Hall to thank for that. And
Absolutely.
he very much trained me in, this has to be one of our absolute highest priorities to maintain. So thank you for, and the girl from Flint,
Oh, yeah.
this is critical. Absolutely critical. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Okay, we have such exciting conversations about food. So, right? They do give out Tootsie Rolls if you go for a tour, and chocolate milk if you go for a tour. All right, I believe we have a motion. No, we don't have a motion. We need a motion to approve the professional services agreement with Fishbeck Engineering to undertake remedial. Do we have a motion? Motion to, okay,
Second. I think Ms.
as presented.
Yeah.
Oh.
Fishback.
Okay, yes, sorry,
Oh.
I'm down one. Motion to approve the June 30th, 2022 Infrastructural Alternatives INC continued wastewater operations, maintenance and management proposal. And I have a motion
And I second.
and a second. So, Ms. Hamel and Ms. Nixon. Any other discussion? I will do a roll call and I will do it in alphabetical order. Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon.
Yes.
Ms. Powell.
Yes.
Ms. Race.
Yes.
Mayor Conley votes yes. Hooray. Thank you so much for all of that work and thank you for continuing. And thank you for participating in Dr. Palin Sue's grant for public health. I told her you would say that. Sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Just,
Thank you.
action item E, the asphalt in front of the high school. So, Mr. Manager, tell us some specifics and then we can talk about if we're gonna make a motion for this and what that would look like.
So, anyone who drives out on Muskegon in front of the high school is aware of a very large patch of bad asphalt. I don't know what caused it. But I do want to see it get fixed. It's a common complaint that we received at City Hall. So I'm trying to find ways to get it taken care of.
Especially before school starts.
Yeah, so I originally figured that because we're doing the water main project there, which will involve some level of asphalting, that we would simply pay that company just a little bit extra to do this, patch. But, Mr. LaRose wanted to discuss this issue with everybody in town to see who might get the best price, which is fair. The issue right now is I don't know, based on when these guys are gonna be here and what price they're gonna quote us, how council wants to take care of it. So I don't anticipate it's gonna cost that much. But
Would you like a motion not to exceed?
well, so obviously I do want to keep council involved. Normally what I propose in this situation is approval of the project with the approval of the mayor or something. like that.
Right, we can do that.
Because if it comes to, $5,000 or $10,000, that's an easy, no problem. If it's 75,000, now I'm gonna be like, I'm not so sure about that. But obviously it's a political question, so you are my political liaison to the council.
Well, and again, I always look from the lens of safety. And this is a specific area that's problematic for lots of 16-year-old drivers. I'm gonna be looking at school buses that are gonna be coming in there. My understanding is water gets pooled in there and it freezes, which is also problematic, come winter. So it becomes very slippery. I think this is the place where a student was hit crossing about 4 or 5 years ago.
There's no crossing there.
No, but a student was on a skateboard. Do y'all remember this? It was the year my daughter graduated. I guess it's been a while.
Honestly, I don't know if you could use a skateboard at this location because that's how bad the asphalt.
Well, it is now, but it's a consistent problematic area. Thoughts? Ms. Powell?
I think if they're doing work there in the first place, they might as well patch the whole area, which needs to be patched. So why not do it while there's the trucks and the materials there?
Would you feel okay, if the manager has me approve an amount? Do we want an amount not to exceed? Do you want, how do you want to progress with it?
I just have no idea how much it will cost.
That's
So,
what I'm thinking. It's hard to set a cap if
Well, but I mean, we can set a cap of, if it's more than this, then you got to come back to council.
Madam Mayor, may I interject here a minute?
Please do, Mr. LaRose.
This is gonna be a tough thing to try and even get a price on. It could be extremely low if they have material left over that they can just use for it. Dean's is doing a lot of work at the school. I think I'm gonna have them do the removal on it because we have such a great working relationship with them and they're always fair to us. And then I'll probably use their paver to go ahead and fill it in. I don't know what it's gonna cost, but it is gonna be a very time sensitive job when we get it done. So I think what we probably need is just an approval for a reasonable amount. And
What's a reasonable amount? Give me a number.
I really can't put a number on it because I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be 15,000. I mean, it would be less
So-
than that, and it may be substantially less than
So
that.
If we set an
So
amount not to exceed 16,000, 20,000,
we would be fine. We could go ahead, get the work done. There should be no issues at that price, I'm sure.
Big is the area.
It's bigger than you might imagine. It extends, I don't know, 100 feet, 200 feet long.
I mean,
It's like half a block.
it's like a half a block.
Yeah, it's a lane and a half for probably a half a block. I'm guessing about 150 feet, maybe a little longer.
We can get it for less than.
Because they're already out
Yeah,
there.
they're already there. Yeah, that's a good deal.
I would be comfortable making a motion to approve. I need help with language.
An amount not to exceed
An amount not to exceed $20,000 with the approval of the mayor.
to re-asphalt
To
the
mill and-
section
Yes.
of road in front of the high school.
Yes.
Second.
Yeah, Eric, are you comfortable with that?
Can we rephrase it just a hair?
Sure, tell us how to say it.
Motion to re-asphalt
The section of road in
the
front
high
of the
school?
high school. I
an
do
amount
wanna
not
like,
to exceed
$20,000 with the approval of.
the approval of the mayor.
you want like a from this to this?
No, I think that,
Comfortable with that language?
yeah.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
okay, any
Ms.
other
Nixon, is
discussion?
that the motion you made?
Exactly.
Is that the motion?
Yes, very good. Yes.
Any other discussion? Okay, I will do a roll call vote. Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Ms. Race.
Yes.
Mayor Conley votes yes. Moving on to discussion items. Discussion on the proposed apartment complex development at 14300 White Creek Avenue and the 425 agreement Solon Township tax levy, Solon Township and City 425 agreement, and they voted?
I haven't heard.
Okay,
Last I heard was that it went in front of their full board, I believe Monday.
Monday?
They tabled it at that time.
Hmm,
So we don't have a definitive answer. I thought maybe we would. And we keep trying to get it done. The finance director and I did a pretty deep dive into this proposal this week. You know,
you and I talked in quite a bit of detail, but I feel like we can't really, we need this answer before we can really progress on.
So let's table.
part of it is the proportionality between the township and the city on the 425 agreement area. But also, at some point, you guys might want to discuss the, you want to front load this or do you want to back load this? If we have the developers take care of the closing of the loop and the installation of the sewerage, you know, it's gonna cost substantially more than if we do it ourselves with.
I was gonna say, we did back of the napkin and we said, do we have those numbers?
So to run just the water line ourselves from the water tower over to White Creek Avenue and then south to meet up.
Which is the part we need to do regardless of if there's an apartment complex.
Estimating about 600,000. Now, the reason it can make sense for us is that we have, it's called ARPA funding that we need to spend, which is gonna be about 400,000, maybe a little bit less. Now, if we combine with a little bit of the fund balance from the water fund, which is probably $1.5 million, we could easily pay for that. It doesn't take care of the sewerage, but it kind of eliminates that portion of it. Because as you guys will see in my notes, the land bank payment at the end of this proposal is significant money. And I don't know if it makes sense for the city.
I don't know if it does
It's a
either.
Policy question for you guys, but it's something I'd like to hear from the developers on.
And I feel like I want you all to have actual math numbers in front of you. And to look at it, because there's, there's a couple of different pieces. One is we need to close this water loop. Because we need to make sure that, for example, the brook doesn't, if we have a water main break, they could be not having water.
Isn't that kind of a separate issue then from this
Well-
proposal, if we have to do it anyway?
So part of what the developers are proposing is that they will close the loop for us.
For like 3 times the amount, no, thank you.
Well, not quite three, no.
Almost.
well, I don't remember the exact numbers, but basically they're offering to pay for it up front.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we can pay for it upfront.
We could, and keep in mind, it's not the developers that are like,
No, I'm not. I mean,
The
I
land
really am in favor of the developers coming in for that. I think that's awesome. I'm just wondering why we're going, like, why would we spend more money that we have to spend anyways for someone else to pay for it if we can pay for it?
'Cause it's money now versus money later.
Yeah,
And
but a
it-
lot more money.
Well, but it also increases the footprint of the city and it increases the number because we get an entire apartment complex and a 425 that ultimately.
Yeah, but I imagine they would develop here if we were gonna front the cost to close the water loop, which we have to do anyways.
No.
It doesn't do the sewer piece of it.
it doesn't do the sewer piece, which would still
So
be.
could they could we have them do like the deal with that?
Well, so the question becomes, would these developers still develop if we either say, we're just not gonna do the sewer, it's all on you? Or we say, okay, instead of $1 million, it's only 300,000. So now the taxable payback is gonna be 4 or 5 years instead of 15. Now, I don't know if it does anything different with the land bank portion, which is the 5 years on the back end. So that cost might still be there, but this is,
So if they said no, then we're essentially paying them like $1 million just to build a development in our city. Then
we're not paying them. They're paying,
essentially, but if they back out of it because it's not a good deal for them, that would be because they're losing money, correct?
well, so if what you're talking about is closing the loop, that's almost an essential emergency piece of infrastructure.
Right, but if we, so if we go back to them and say, we're gonna pay for the water loop, we've got that covered because we can just pay it out of our funds. And the grant or whatever that other ARPA thing was. But we need you guys to finance the sewer part to it. If they said no, what would be the reason besides just they wouldn't be making extra money on it?
That's a
There
good
wouldn't
question.
be, so we would literally be paying
Well,
them
and then we
to
get into
develop
the
an
piece.
apartment complex in our city, so that's the piece that we're wondering, right? How
Okay,
much
but-
That
But
development is worth.
it's that, right, and the part is the 425, because this isn't technically in the city right now. Like, we aren't capturing any tax dollars on this.
Yeah, I agree with you that that piece is, I'm really big, like,
Like,
we
I,
can't make a decision
we-
on that. I
we
I
literally
understand that
need
part.
math in
Correct.
front of us.
But we have a lot of math. That's what I'm asking him about, is because he did give us like 3 paragraphs in straight math.
If I can inject something here, and it's a little different department, but your fire insurance rate is can be affected by if or if not our water system isn't looped,
Mm-hmm.
because they're looking for 2 sources of direction for flow to make sure you have enough water coming to a particular fire. So there are other things outside of the development of it and so forth. And like the city manager says, we need to get this looped for the use of the people who are out there already.
Mm-hmm.
And it does have a listing, because they do check and see if there are stubs or dead ends
Mhm.
to our water system when determining your insurance rates.
Which is why I'm pulling that out, because if we have to do that, if that's important,
It's important.
Do we have,
then I'd rather spend the little money as opposed to doubling it or tripling it or whatever it is that they're
Well,
proposing.
so let me just correct one thing. So we're talking about potentially paying for the water loop ourselves with ARPA funding, et cetera.
Correct.
If the developers still want or need the storage to be paid for under this brownfield development,
Correct.
they're still gonna be asking for what's essentially a tax rebate.
Yep.
to Pay them back for that. Okay, so we get the infrastructure, they pay for it up front, but we pay them back.
So what my interest is just seeing that with the sewer and paying out of our own money with the water loop. That's what I want.
If I could finish.
Yeah.
Problem is, my understanding, and I'm not a math magician, is that it does not matter if it's a 15-year payback or a 5-year payback or whatever. The land bank still gets their 5 years of payment at the end.
Correct.
So if we're gonna be required, no matter what, to pay back 5 years of $120,000 in property taxes, that's $600,000. That is way worse than the interest rates. That's part of my concern, and this is not my level of expertise.
Now, then we have to add in the other piece of the Solon pass-through.
Correct.
Because one of the things that Solon is talking about doing is absorbing a piece of that in the 425.
Which we have asked them to be proportional on. So we're proposing an 85-15 pass-through, meaning that 15% of the total property taxes would be passed through instead of going back to the developer, help us pay for police services, fire services, etc. However, under the 425 agreement, there's a 2.5 mil pass-through.
Mhm.
Them, which would basically subsume the full 15% pass-through to us. In other words, if they're not willing to give up 85% of their income, we're gonna be getting no money.
Yep, because we're taking the money that we did earn from this agreement and passing it straight through to Solon.
Correct.
And we need, at least as I explained to the developers to begin with, some of the money, because we need to be able to pay Todd to show up. We need to be able to pay Marty to show up. We need to be able to pay Bill to show up and plow streets once that becomes a piece of the city. And if they're basically becoming a piece of the city without paying upfront for any infrastructure, we then have to absorb all of those costs. And to me, that's sort of like a tipping point.
Yeah.
But so I feel like we need this answer from Solon to give us an idea of, do we have any income coming in as a piece of it to support this? And then the next question will be, once we do, we need to look at the long-term picture of the cost of the tax piece on the end versus the increased amount of taxes over the long term, and where is that tipping point on the payback? And then the overarching piece to me is the additional housing. So that's what I see everybody needs to like roll around in their brain. But Solon tabled this Monday night? Correct? Okay, so we don't know their position on this yet. So I guess I'll go down and say questions, Ms. Powell.
Not so much questions, but I just can't believe that Solon wouldn't be grateful to our city to help development, and also to understand that we're the ones sending the snow plows out, and the police and the fire department. And I think it's only fair we get a bite of that money.
I have no idea what Solon thinks.
I
I'm
don't
waiting for them
either.
to vote and tell me.
Yes, but I think that would be a kind of a tipping point, and
It is for me.
it costs us a lot of money to provide all these services.
And I want citizens of Cedar Springs to receive those sort of services.
Mhm.
It's important to me that the police show up, that the fire department shows up, that Bill and his people plow things and deal with wind damage. And I mean, that's why we're here. So yeah, that is for me. And anything else, other questions you
No,
have, or how
not
this
at the
works?
moment.
Okay, Ms.
I
Atchison?
think that we're just going round and round with the same things right now. We can't really do anything until we have the answers of what Solon wants to do.
That's where
so-
I'm at.
Yeah, I think that
Do you feel like you have a full understanding of the rest of it?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
Ms. Nixon?
So my preference, and obviously we don't have enough math to say exactly how it would come together, is I'd rather, because the city is in good financial shape now. We know we're good now. What are we gonna be in 15 years? Well, we hope it's gonna be good. We're gonna try to make it that way, but who knows? So I'd rather pay upfront now for water or sewer or whatever we have to do that we're gonna eventually need to do anyway. While I know we're in a good financial state. And then at the end of it, you would collect tax money and ensure that whatever is happening at that time, we're at least getting that income.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's literally my sentiment.
Same.
Other discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, we will.
Okay.
Okay.
So
That's strictly what
basically-
it's for now is discussion.
Yeah, and and to clarify, because there's a lot of moving parts to this. And it's complicated. Like, I mean, I had a half a dozen meetings before this came to you all. And Darla was doing lots of math magic and finding these grant proposals and ARPA and so on. And so trying to make sure that we even understand what all the options are. And I don't have a solid, like, this is what I think we should do. That's not where I'm not trying to persuade anybody. At the moment, I'm trying to make sure everyone understands what's going on.
This wasn't to make a motion, so
Right,
for
yeah.
discussion, which has been a
Correct.
good discussion.
Right. So
We're not done.
everybody feels like they understand?
Yes.
Okay, moving on.
It's complicated.
Discussion, it is complicated. Discussion on child daycare centers policy. Manager.
Yeah, so, again, I've been trying to clean up the ordinances for 6 years now. It's an ongoing process.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
There is
To
a
our planning commission.
there's kind of a dispute between the home occupations ordinance and let's say the table of uses as it relates to child daycare center. So as it currently stands, I believe that child daycare centers are required to
State license.
state licensed child daycare centers are required to be given home occupation approval. Now, you know, on one hand, it's like they're already pre-existing. There's not a lot I can do about forcing them to, you know, conform to site plan review or something like that. So what I've been trying to do is just kind of get them registered because there is some value in the registration process. If we find a child wandering down the street and we know that there's a daycare center, and we have a good phone number to call somebody. But we've been given some pushback on this. We so in some regards because there is a disambiguation problem.
And minors and information on minors and.
Well, not even so much that, but you know, people, they're just gonna say, well, the state says I can be here. How dare you think that the city can, you know, require me to register at the city? Well, we can, but there are some difficulties in the language, which I'm not entirely sure what the intent was. So, you know,
Is this a planning commission? Do we need to send this to planning commission?
I think it's a fairly simple issue. Which I provided you guys with the information. I know it's a lot of information, but it's a fairly simple issue.
Okay.
Migraine starting, I'm sorry.
No.
Continue on, I'm listening.
Basically, I don't know, I don't have the exact language, but let's say the home occupation ordinance says something to the effect of child daycare centers shall be exempt from this ordinance. But the actual provided use and license is not child daycare centers, it's care centers for children or something
We
like.
need to like change some language.
Well, so we could change the language, we can go through that whole process, you know, not like I have enough things on my plate.
Right.
Or we could just adopt a policy that says we
This is
understand
this.
there's a scrivener's error, whatever you guys want to call it. And from that point forward, I'll just say, look, provide us with your license, contact information, we're done.
And we should probably know who the registered daycares are. I mean,
Well,
that's like a fire department, police department sort of thing.
it's also an issue for if we identify a child daycare center which is not licensed.
Right.
If I may.
Sure.
Are we differentiating between the 6 and the 12? There's 2 different levels at the state
Right.
for that, 6 kids and 12 kids. Is there differentiation for that?
Well,
To be honest with you, I haven't read all of the ordinance or anything to check on that.
Sure. Yep, so good question. The answer is under the planning and zoning ordinance, if you have 6 children or less, it's considered a permitted use in the R1 district. Okay. If it is 7 or more,
More than 6.
12, then it's considered a special land use.
That's consistent.
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm a little slow on the uptake just at the moment. So what we're really saying is there's 2 ordinances that both sort of address this. But in one, we call it a home child care center and the other one, we call it a daycare center.
That's, I mean, I don't have the exact language, but that's.
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at, depending on how it's defined and the number of children that could be held there. You can have two different titles with the number of children that are involved in each. And that was kind of why I was asking city manager how we were set up for that, so.
Yeah, so I guess what I'd be proposing is that if it's a child daycare center, whether it's 6 children or 12 children, and we identify as pre-existing, but it's already licensed. To me, that would be saying that the state wasn't, recognizing the city's zoning ordinance, first of all, but second of all, if we haven't had complaints about them, especially with this planning and zoning side of things. Look, we can handle all sorts of other problems, whether you're parking your car on the front lawn, whether you're leaving junk all over, the backyard, whatever. We have other ordinances for that. And so I guess what I'm proposing is we deal with these child daycare centers using those ordinances instead of this home occupations.
And this one is just so that we're on the up and up and everyone knows that there's a state license one.
Well, yes, but so that the city is made aware of the fact that it's actually a license.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That everything's on the up and up and you have a licensed
That's what I'm
daycare
proposing, yeah.
that we know
Which
about.
surprises me a little bit, because those that I have been involved with have required, the state have had required a sign off by the local government. Oh,
Interesting.
how or why in the past, I don't know, but that's just the ones I've been involved with. So,
Mr. Probst, do you have any, Sergeant Probst, do you have any, do the police have any like records or notifications or lists of like where daycare centers are
There
or?
is a state registry.
I'm sure there must.
They're registered with the state. There is a state registry. It's been a long time since I've looked at it, but there is a registry and there's have to be something to be looked up. It's a licensing issue.
I mean, I'm
And
just,
if they are licensed, it's.
I'm
there.
just looking at it from like active shooter world. I mean, as the teacher who looks at the
Well,
lens through active shooters. You would
We don't
want,
have a list.
okay,
No, it's
that
a-
was what I was wondering.
It's state licensed,
We don't have
therefore
those at
they're one of
KSCD
those.
either.
Right, I'm thinking more of like geography of knowing, like, you know where schools are. I don't, but if you don't know where daycares are,
But it's not a daycare center. It's in somebody's house. You
But it-
ne- like,
It's, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I mean, I work for GRPD and I've never seen a list of daycares.
If
Not
it's,
that I'm saying that it's a bad idea.
if it's state licensed, it's listed, and they do give addresses. and so forth.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the police department doesn't have,
Right.
like, we don't have our own listing.
I believe you. That was just my question. I'm not faulting. I'm saying like, was wanting to, because if the police already had it, then we don't need to create it.
State has
The state has it, and it's not the easiest list to find or
It's not.
read or understand.
It's like not searchable or,
And I'm assuming it's also not like on a map.
no, I don't think so.
Like I would want our police sergeant to be able to have it on a map.
Well, it sounds like the council's maybe not 100% okay with this. Maybe it's refer it to the planning commission.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go
Um,
ahead. Well, let's, Ms. Hamel and then Ms. Nixon.
I was just gonna say, I'm fine with it. If the city has a copy of it, of all the people in the city, that seems like it covers all the bases. As long as they're licensed with the state.
So the difference between a daycare center and a home occupation, which is a working out of your home and babysitting. You have to be licensed at that in your home. But a daycare center is an actual facility. You don't live there, but you do this.
You
business.
can live at a daycare
That would be a home occupation, wouldn't it?
without number of kids, right?
Well, so again, complicated.
Yeah.
The home occupation ordinance, to my mind, designed to, prevent somebody from running a mechanic shop out of their garage, something where you've got cars going in and out all day. Basically, you want to preserve the integrity and the fabric of the residential neighborhood for residential purposes. The problem in this particular instance, again, because it's very complicated, is that our local home occupation ordinance says something to the effect of, child daycare centers shall be excluded from being required to register. However, that is not the same language or name which is under the table of uses or the licensure. So I suspect the intent was to exclude that thing. They just didn't use the right words.
So
Ms. Nixon and then Ms. Atchison.
I now have two questions. So first of all, I apologize, but I need to back up. So it sounded like from what you just said, that one of these ordinances that isn't working well with the other one says that essentially these childcare don't have to register. But earlier we were talking about that we wanted them to register. So what is our goal here?
Again,
Sorry.
we have an ordinance called the Home Occupations Ordinance, which
Yes.
requires all sorts of businesses that are proposed to be run out of houses to register with the city.
Okay.
One of the footnotes to that ordinance says that a child daycare center type A is excluded from registering under this ordinance.
Okay.
However, there is no thing called child daycare center type A. It just doesn't exist. So my belief is that it was the intent to exclude all types of child daycare centers, but they didn't use the right language. But I don't get to make those determinations.
Okay. So what we're really saying then is we are not wanting or needing or desiring them to register.
What I'm proposing is that they simply provide the city with a copy of their state licensure to prove that they are indeed registered with the state, which requires that they know how to do CPR, that they have
That's the state determining all of
yes,
it.
all these safety things that we want people to have when they're in possession of your children. Which would help us, first of all, identify homes that are acting as child daycare centers but are not licensed. But it would also help me exclude them from having to register under this home occupation ordinance, which they have objected to.
We would just create language to say, if you're a licensed child daycare facility, you need to register that you are with a copy of your license with the city. Right. And I see this as being, like, for example, our fire and police people then know that they're there, which to me is sort of a thing.
Okay, so I'm gonna just have to let that one go, because clearly I'm not gonna get it tonight, and I'm just gonna let it go. But, I actually am not in favor of child daycare centers registering with the city. Simply because, the fire and police are background checked. Are we going to background check everyone who works for the city? Are
Does
we
it
going
have
to
to
make-
be available to Open Meetings Act? That they registered with that?
Well, so keep in mind that these are actually publicly available lists. Anyone in this room can go onto the state website and find where the child daycare centers are in their community. All I'm asking or proposing is that, they self-identify and say, hey, I'm a child daycare center in your community. And here's my name and here's my phone number.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor.
Yes.
Is that more for safety's sake? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm proposing.
Yeah,
Partially,
okay, so maybe we need to kind of include that it's more for safety's sake so that we know and, so they're not thinking they have to register to
and you know what?
comply with something that's more for us to help.
If you guys even want to get beyond the
Families.
registration, because that's not language.
Yeah, take that word out, maybe.
We don't even need their name and phone number. I could literally myself,
They provide your license to city
I
hall.
could literally myself go onto this website, find all the licensed facilities in the community. And then say, okay, here are where they're at.
Mhm.
We have the addresses. All I'm saying to you guys tonight is that under the home occupations ordinance, it doesn't give me the proper language to properly exclude them. So I'm legally obligated to follow the laws of the city and require them to register under a home occupation.
Unless we,
Unless you guys give me something to
Okay.
say.
to
no.
say you don't have to. But I would at some point like our police and fire to have a list of these places. I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
The
one of the points we're talking about is the fact that you're looking at some that are registering with the state. That doesn't mean there aren't some functioning out here that have never registered with the state.
Okay.
Okay, when you're talking about home occupations, this is my interpretation, okay? If you're talking about home occupations, these people are watching children for a fee, but they're not registered with the state. But we're gonna tell them you can do it here. If you are registered, you are now looking out for and requiring certain standards that they may not be providing now. Now, that's not necessarily our position, but it could be by saying a home occupation and babysitting, whether it's called a daycare or not, has to be licensed
Okay, so I
to
think,
be permissible. Okay,
sorry, Jerry.
that's fine, that's fine.
So I think really what we're looking for is just that for purposes going forward, we understand that home childcare center, daycare center, in-home childcare can all be used interchangeably. Is that what we're looking for?
Well, then it's just a little bit more complicated because as we talked about earlier, 6 children or less under your zoning ordinance is a permitted use in the R1 district. However, I believe 7 to 12 and all the other types of child daycare centers are not a permitted use in the single family residential.
And that gets to like how many cars are coming and going and do you want a person watching 12 kids every day to have the cars coming and going as your next door neighbor in your residence?
So help me help you.
Maybe this is better to send to the planning commission.
Okay, yeah,
I
thank
feel
you.
like it does. That's what I said earlier.
lot of
is I
discuss-
feel like this needs to go to planning commission. I do though also feel like ultimately we need some kind of a list for our police and fire.
Oh, if it's publicly available and searchable.
Well, I know, but it's not easily searchable and it's not attached on maps. And if there's a fire, I would like our fire department to know that it's full of little kids. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
I think we'll
So,
put a pin
yes,
in
but
that.
like, what's the difference between a family home that has 7 kids in it? Cause like, you don't register your kids for the.
They're all,
I don't-
they're all
I don't know.
related.
It just,
and there,
I guess, but I don't see the need, unless somebody can correct me, I don't see the need for.
Well,
police and
like,
Fire to have a specific list.
like
I
what
mean,
this.
I dispatched for 10 years and we've never one time had a list to refer to see like what we're gonna do different if it's a daycare versus
Right.
a residential house.
I think only Mike said was if there was a lost kid, maybe we'd know where they might come from,
Which is
but is that
I'm
pertinent?
mostly, what I'm mostly interested in is having it be a set apart for the ones that aren't doing it legally. So that we can be like, well, you're not on the list because you didn't give us your license. So like, what is going on with you being in our city? And then we have a little bit of our own power as opposed to going straight to the state and having the state do it.
I have
That is
no
it.
appetite to
Any-
regulate childcare centers.
yeah, I don't either.
Please, no.
We don't regulate.
Again, for having them be legal or not legal, state licensed or not state licensed. That's all I'm saying. But in terms of having specific lists for public safety, I don't understand I don't know. I don't understand how this conversation even got to be so long.
If I may, and we are dragging it out, so it was a discussion, but it's a good discussion. As the city manager said, there are people renting out their home for watching of children. That is a business. What he's looking at is something that regulates businesses in the home setting.
Mhm.
That's where it's different. A person with 11 children, heaven help them,
Right?
and bless them. They are their children. They aren't making a profit on them. I would hope, okay? So therefore, it's not a business.
I understand.
when
that
it comes
part, but in
down to a
terms of,
business,
like,
you have
sending it to the police and fire, like, we don't treat foster care homes any different than we do. And those aren't your actual children. Like, that makes, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Rose?
No, nothing.
Oh, you're just stretching. I
Yeah.
thought I saw your arm go up.
Okay.
But I'm fine if this wants to go to the planning commission.
Yeah.
And this is the teacher talking. That's fine. I
Okay.
mean, that has 1,500 bodies that we do lockdown drills with and that we do fire drills with.
That's fine,
Okay.
but this is the dispatcher talking and police don't need to know exactly who's inside the house to respond to an emergency.
I don't know that they need to know exactly who, but I think, I could be wrong. You tell me, Sergeant Probst. Would you like to know if it doesn't?
Right.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
If there's a fire, they're going no matter who.
Well, and I know that, but if you're hauling out 12 5-year-olds.
What is the difference between me babysitting 3 children and me having 3 children in my house? You think the
Well, we're
officers
not
are gonna do
talking about
something different
3, we're
because I tell
talking-
them that I'm babysitting?
We're
No.
talking about 12.
We're also talking about what I'm not bringing you. I'm talking about a problem in the language of the ordinance. And that's all I'm asking about right now. So I will take it.
Okay,
to the
maybe-
planning commission.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move.
Discussion on using additional KCSD support for election days. All right, this was something I've asked for. I have some concerns. Our clerk has gotten some ugly emails. We have clerks in a variety of places that are getting death threats, that they're putting up bulletproof glass. There is a person running for an office who has a video out advocating destruction of voting machines, unplugging voting machines. I'm hopeful none of that will happen. I would feel a lot more comfortable if we, and I was told by election workers yesterday that Sergeant Probst is often in and out quite a bit that day. I don't know if we wanted to dedicate a person. I'm very concerned about Miss Newland at stupid dark 30 getting into her car and driving down to the county with all of the documentation, like by herself.
So it would be good for a police escort.
At least
Yeah. At
towards
minimum.
that end of the
Mhm.
evening, I'm concerned.
Right, because there's people in and out, there's more people during the day. But to walk to her car in the dark by herself with documentation.
Ms. Mason, can I get you a photo
I'm sorry, what?
I've got Excedrin in my office.
That would be amazing.
My
I'm
husband
sorry.
too.
You need
Don't
more water?
apologize.
Uh.
We're gonna adjourn for like 2 minutes.
Sorry.
No, I was about to ask if you wanted to leave. I was gonna excuse you.
Rebecca.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, Rebecca, how do you feel about that?
Did we adjourn? I'm sorry.
We're
are
adjourned, but they
temporarily-
just would like to, I've already asked you some of these questions about like what time do you leave and.
How do you feel? Would you?
Sure, if we're adjourned, I'd rather wait until we're back in
Okay.
session.
Okay,
to make that comment,
great.
But I'm happy to answer. any
Thank you. Yeah, just so you know that that's coming up.
I'm going to run to my car and get my sunglasses.
Yep, and I'm looking for some drugs.
Well, he's getting some.
I know he's getting some too.
I have
think
Tylenol.
this-
I don't know which. And
I think he said
ibuprofen.
Excedrin. I think I have Sudafed. I don't know if it's sinus pressure,
Good thing to know that city council's got drugs, right?
right?
I believe. I already
Well,
took
that's
some.
the thing. I have lots in my desk still at school that I didn't bring home. I don't know that I have much. Right?
Yeah, that's the good stuff.
The good stuff. I have chocolate. I have Sudafed. I think she was going to go get something out of her car.
Oh, careful.
You know what I mean? I also spoke to, a couple of the election workers. Just as I will add it into our
Okay.
conversation when we come
Alright.
back in, but I did also speak to a couple of the election
We're
workers.
here. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm specifically not saying their names, but
Did we add people when the district changed? To
We-
the polling place here?
no,
We won't have to ask that question then.
we didn't get any bigger. We changed shape.
Cause I'm like done deal. And then
Or
people-
smaller. We just changed shape.
We changed shape. The redistricting changed
I got my
shape.
new voter card in the mail.
And it's true for like all of it. Like we're now not in District 33 were in District 2,
91 and 2.
91, 2, and 33. But US District, we used to be in 3, which was like part of Grand Rapids. That was the whole like Justin Amash.
91, 2 and what?
Jerry Ford. Right.
91, 2 and
91 is our state house. 33 is
Okay.
our
Rep.
rep. I'm missing one. 3 is our
Thought you said
US house. 2, sorry, it used to be 3. It's 2 now. It used to be 3. We're 3, 33,
Good to
and
know.
91. Right. It's. I'm doing this communication.
You on the planning commission and
Gotta give 'em a different picture.
Well, in this, it kind of. Like how he didn't realize that. Mike, did you get that?
Yeah, Frank told me he was bringing it
I
tonight.
saw your face. This is what he was talking about.
This is what the state has spent so far.
Not. Right. It's this. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So he
it's
went
this.
and looked at how much the state has spent.
Yeah,
and
so
then
that's what he's talking.
He has the numbers on what the state estimates it's going to cost.
Nothing to do with.
And he's looking at how that is not matching. And his argument is if he's
Yeah,
in the house, he's gonna try to make. it
so
match.
it wasn't.
about me?
But I saw you.
About me, like.
No, he actually contacted.
We will wheelchair you in here.
He looked up those.
Okay, we're ready? A little microphone.
It's helpful. I don't know if it's sinus at all.
No,
Oh, that's not good enough.
I'll be like, she's not layer everything together. Let's
Well,
do one thing.
I
Just
do.
make the layer. Yeah.
what I hear. Only after 10 o'clock. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so we're going to go back into session at 8:44. And we are having a discussion.
Oh, thank you. I couldn't find mine.
Thank you. You good?
Yes, this is much.
If you need to be excused, get up and go, and I will excuse you.
Okay. This
You
is
are, I'm just saying,
much better.
I'm just saying.
Here we go.
All right, so we're back on the discussion on using the Kent County Sheriff's Department for support for elections. And how should we, do we need to expand some of that? Do we need to have some dedicated time? Do we need to have some dedicated sheriffs that we would be paying for a specific time to ensure safety and election security? And Ms. Newland, they have some questions for you. Johnson, used to be Newland, sorry. I was like- I was really
confused for a second and I was
I'm sorry, sorry, I apologize. I do it with coworkers a lot.
Specific questions I can help answer or just, would you like my?
So I think one of the questions that we had was about what time do you usually leave? And like, what does that look like for you?
So usually the time that we leave, it's very dependent on whether or not there's write-ins, whether or not we have to do any additional processing at the end of the night. However, most times it's me leaving the building by myself. I've never felt afraid for my life. However, as Ms. Conley had indicated, there are clerks across the state that do receive threatening emails, threatening what have yous. I did have a brief conversation with Todd about it, and I think the areas where we could maybe improve on are the areas when we're opening and when we're closing. Throughout the day, he is in the office most times. And if we do need assistance, they're a phone call away. But if we wanted to have, even if we had somebody dispatched here, we say, okay, we're gonna expect to close up in 30 minutes. I could dispatch somebody here, say, hey, can you give me an escort to the, especially if there's any kind of disruptions in the end of the evening, if there's problematic citizens that may be, distrustful of the process or anything like that. I think that it's absolutely something I could call for and say, hey, we need somebody to come on over and assist us.
And just to be clear, so, because maybe not everybody understands, like you do after the ballots go into the machine, they are tabulated, and then there's a printout, and then you take that to the county to be verified. Like you literally physically drive that to the county at whatever time it is that that happens. And it could be, you know, the polls close at 8, right? So it could be at 8:01, not ever, but
Wishful thinking.
it could be 2 o'clock in the morning.
I've gone down there at 1 o'clock in the morning before, so.
So these are the things that and it has to go to the county at that time. It's not like she can just decide, well, I'll take it tomorrow morning.
On some elections, I can actually take it the next day, but for state elections, I have to have it
Right.
there that evening.
Right.
So basically what you're then saying is that you're comfortable with being able to call and get somebody here and get a escort to your vehicle later on that night. You're comfortable. You don't feel like we need to have somebody posted here.
I think one thing we need to be really mindful of is to make sure we're not posting people like police officers in the polling location because we don't want to deter any public
Right.
persons. But I do think that Todd and I have a good working relationship where if he's in and out of the building throughout the day, we know he's here. We have that sense of security here. Thankfully, we haven't had any major issues here, but I always want to prepare for that possibility. But I do feel that if we needed assistance, we could call dispatch and get it rather quickly. The only hours of concern that I would have would be from 6 a.m. to 7:30 before other staff come into the building. A lot of times DPW might be in the back. So it's,
So if we had said we would like to have a officer available from 6 to 7:30, not necessarily in here, but in their office, on call, available. I mean, they know they're always on call, but in the area. And then again, if you were able to like call them 30 minutes before you were gonna leave,
yeah, I mean, I think that would be,
is that the kind of thing you could do? Like, could you provide a escort out to her car?
Like, are you asking for a special assignment? Or just for like the deputies that are already patrolling Cedar Springs to just know that they might need to?
I don't know what I'm asking for.
I understand.
I think you would just ask
It would be
dispatch
special.
a special assignment.
To me,
all
it
day?
would have to be because they can't,
Could be on a different call.
sergeant couldn't determine that they're not gonna be on calls at that given
Right.
time. Okay, is that correct? Okay.
The best course of action for the hours that what Johnson's talking about would be a dedicated officer. So 6 to 7:30, a dedicated officer here at City Hall, out of sight, but in the building.
Sure.
And then from 8 PM until 11 PM or until she's ready to go out of town. Dedicated officer to make sure that she gets on her way. Without that, we just can't guarantee that
I-
we're available at all. for
And I totally appreciate what you're saying. That's why I'm asking and why we're having this
throughout the
conversation.
day When the polls are open and citizens are in here voting, staff are here, and there's other people that can assist with making the phone call to the police and that type of thing. Ms. Johnson feels comfortable during that time.
Right.
We would do our best to be in the area and be around and be available throughout the day. But the outside times that she's talking about, when the polls are closed, but the front doors are open to the public, for poll watchers and anybody else that wants to watch what they're doing, when nobody else is here but the staff.
And the election, as I talked to 2 of the election workers, the election workers leave before you do.
oftentimes, yes.
And they leave and you're alone. So I'm told by the election workers, when you are walking out to your car with this bag of receipts, basically, to take to be verified at the Kent County. That
Normally, I'm shortly there after them, but
I understand, but at 1 o'clock in the morning.
So what we're really looking for is about 6 hours worth of dedicated police time.
I think so.
1 in the morning and then from 8 o'clock up until 1-ish. She leaves. Or she leaves.
Whenever she's done.
Whenever she's done.
Can I just interject for a second?
Yes.
So I understand what we're talking about, but, you know, I'm increasingly concerned about the say, the status of our elections, the safety of our elections. And, you know, if we're talking about 6 hours at the bookends, it's not that much more to have somebody just dedicated here all day as well.
Just wouldn't be in the room necessarily.
Right.
just
We aren't
available.
saying they have to be like hovering over anyone watching. And they would just be, we know they would be available because they wouldn't be on another call.
We're looking at our election with one precinct. Many of the other locations around the area and other communities have multiple precincts. Are there enough deputies in the area to cover every precinct every hour during the day? And that's another thing is the availability of the officers that would be willing to do it. Or how many are gonna request it. Not saying we shouldn't be concerned here. I don't know, we're probably in better condition than most. Because Sergeant is here, we do have the deputies in and out during the day, so on and so forth. Whereas a lot of them just don't have that. I understand the concern, I really do. There are a lot of people out there that are troubled now, okay? I don't know if we can give insurance that anything, any place is safe at any time anymore. And it's just like with the schools, we've heard oftentimes the safety there. I don't know, unless you bring them in, lock them down and have guards at every door, you just don't know. And it's a sad time now. There's a lot of people that are not mentally stable that can cause the problems. I want our election board, our clerk to be safe. I just don't know what it's gonna take to do it. I don't know as though 24 hours a day, or at least 12 to 14 hours that day is something we're prepared for.
When you get down to the county building, is there, safety officers or security guards around? You just
There are not.
out wandering around downtown
do have-
Grand Rapids?
Special privileges on where we can go to do those drop offs. So we're not walking through a parking ramp at
Mhm.
1 o'clock in the morning or something like that.
And there's quite a few of you, right?
Yeah, usually you'll see 2 or 3 cars at any given time at the county building dropping off election results.
That would be kind of a scary time.
I'm more concerned about you leaving than I am when you're getting there, but you tell me.
At this point in time, I don't have a big concern about it. I've not ever felt unsafe here. But yeah, we can't prepare for every single possibility. But like I said, if I ever felt unsafe, I would reach out to a deputy, give,
And to be clear, because we are putting this all out on YouTube, the ballots are not what you're taking. And so if someone were to come take you and destroy whatever, they don't change any outcome. The ballots are locked up here in Cedar Springs to be available in the event that they need to be
recounted.
counted, audited, whatever. What you're taking is the printout of the documentation with the receipt of it.
Under the best case scenario, the votes have already been transmitted to the county. Your tabulators transmit, correct?
The tabulators no longer transmit. We do a different
No
system
longer
to do
you
that.
have to Take the drive on each of them? Not
We
the
do
drive,
an
the
RTM.
card, right, okay.
So, in some last election, one RTM'd, one didn't, not at any fault of our own. But so when I got to the county, they uploaded one of our AV boards when I got there.
Which
So-
is why there was a weird like
Delay and
delay in the counting for the ballots for it was the absentees, right?
I believe so. It was one of the precincts.
Counted at the absentee precinct because it actually flipped the outcome.
I don't have a specific request. I'm happy to
I know you
call
don't.
dispatch
This
when
is
needed.
me.
So,
This was me. And this is me having talked to our election workers, and this is me having talked to several other election workers in other places and having talked to you about what are the clinch points. I don't know, Mr. Manager, do you have
No, I think the discussion was important to have because even though Miss Newland / Johnson is comfortable and she's done a great job for elections here in the community. I want this board to at least be comfortable with the idea that if we receive threats, if we anticipate there to be problems, I would like to have a deputy here to help, keep our voting and our elections and our democracy safe. So it may not be completely warranted at this point, but I want you to at least be aware of this as a potential problem.
Mr. Gross's concern seemed to be that it isn't possible to hire dedicated deputies.
It may not be.
Well,
I do not know of any other jurisdiction that has.
okay,
We do not.
okay.
Also, again, as a dispatcher, we're all aware of stuff happening on election days, so like we're on alert for stuff like that anyways.
The officers will.
So-
Of course.
Authority people at an election place,
Mhm.
you'll get a fast response if the officers aren't on the call,
Yep, sure.
just from the past.
And if something crazy is happening, it's a higher priority anyways, so it's gonna jump.
We will probably tell our officers on election day, to hang out close to your election. A lot of times we send that out, we'll send out where the election places are at. Our officers will be close to election polling places and stuff, but out of sight.
Yeah, I was told that you already kind of do. I had a lecture people who told me that
We
that's,
started that at the last, we started that last election.
that's what I
We
was
just
told.
went out and did that. And that'll be given out again, I'm sure, this year.
And I also feel like there's a piece of having this conversation of knowing if other people know that we're on alert for this, it could mitigate some issues. Okay, so anybody have any thoughts?
I would like to see someone, peace officer, accompany Ms. Johnson to her car when she leaves. You don't know who's gonna be hanging around out there, It's,
I would also like that, and I would be willing to pay for an officer to be here to ensure that they are.
yeah, if you can call somebody and say, I'm gonna leave the building now, I'm by myself and that's.
Ms. Atchison?
I agree.
I mean, it's whatever she wants, I feel like, if she feels comfortable with it, then I'm comfortable with it.
Because we're talking about paying for it, so that's the piece why we're talking about it. Ms. Race?
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I know that you're safe and you feel, but we're here to protect you too. So, I mean, I think if it, I don't think it would be a negative thing by any means to have someone here, so.
I'm gonna be careful about how I say this, but we have some people on our ballot that are a little bit volatile. I've been at public events recently with them being volatile. I'm gonna be careful about how I say that, but they're specifically on our ballot. And I don't want you to have to deal with that. So that's one of my concerns. Okay, Mr. Gross?
I have a question for Sergeant Probst to deal with this. What is the likelihood of having a deputy that would come in on a special assignment or a 2, maybe 3 hour period? Pick up a cruiser, come up here, or without a cruiser, come up here and stand by while she comes out of the building to load her documentation and drive away.
The shorter the period, the less likely.
And that's my concern.
Mhm.
Talking about 2 hour period, an hour period, well, we have a minimum of 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But to get a deputy to volunteer to take that overtime assignment. People work 9 PM to 11:30 PM. Night, whatever it is, it can get a little more.
And that's my concern. I'm not opposed to it, okay?
Longer the
I
stretch.
want her to be safe.
Which is where I think the manager was advocating, like, if we're gonna do it,
Just, you can have police help without having a dedicated assignment, correct? So that's what I'm,
Can't guarantee when they will.
when it would be.
Based
So
on
if you're
availability.
within 30, 45 minutes of finishing up, All dispatch.
Majority of the time in Cedar Springs, it's not in.
Mhm.
But this last couple of weeks, you've had a really busy Cedar Springs. Where our officers were tied up for quite a long time.
Mhm.
It could be more.
I just don't know.
And to that rate, it's $93 an hour to have that.
You got a 2.5 hour minimum?
Is it, excuse me, is it less for an 8-hour shift? Or is it the same?
It's that much per hour.
Okay.
If I might offer maybe a solution, at least for August, maybe we just have an internal policy where election inspectors stay with me until I have the building locked. We all exit the building at the same time. And then if we need police services, we know where to reach them.
It was you walking to your car by yourself?
Yep, and I
Yeah.
appreciate the concern. I absolutely do. I pick up my mom and my kid on my way to the county because she doesn't want me to walk into the county building by myself. So I understand the concern. I also want to look at the financial aspects and the police availability. Like I said, if we have any issues, I'm more than happy to give a call. And maybe we try out doing an internal policy of we leave the building at the same time. It's
Yeah,
less
can we-
likely someone's going to approach 4 people than one.
Can we pay election workers a little longer to stay with you?
Yep.
Like,
We
is
can-
that a thing?
I'll stay.
Until the end.
That's what I'm
Here,
thinking.
go.
If her vehicle's parked right here in the garage, which is great job.
We have to get out of our car.
There you go.
Oh, I
Boom.
that.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Creative
nice. I like
solutions
that,
a
yeah.
conversation can bring.
Right,
Yeah.
And then we request our officer to be in the area during that time and give Rebecca the officer's cell phone number and say, hey, I'm wrapping up. I should be leaving in about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sits over here in the parking lot. She opens the door, drives out, the officer probably follows to the freeway and this is, this is not a big election.
Well, it depends.
Mhm.
It depends. There's a specific person.
Well,
Yeah, but comparatively.
Right, but
It's not
as
presidential.
compared to a presidential election,
Right.
they
Correct.
typically have larger turnout.
Yes.
Whereas this one is not, so it'd be smaller, but I really like that, park your car in the
I do
garage
too.
or remote. That way you're not out in a parking lot alone, cause
Yeah.
I don't like that at all.
Right. That was my concern as well. And I had election workers who told me yesterday that, yeah, she walks out there by herself with her bag
Yeah.
of stuff and she drives off all alone.
Until she gets her mom, because then her mom moms her. and
I
says, "Absolutely not."
understand, but you gotta go pick up your mom and that takes care of the other end, but that doesn't take care of this end.
Yeah, for time's sake, I'm happy to have an internal policy of having all of us walk out at the same time, whether that be my vehicles parked in the garage. I'm happy to do that as well and see how that goes. And if there's more conversation to be had, maybe we bring.
Yeah, and part of it is, we should see if if there's stuff ramping up prior. That's one of my.
During the day, of course, the day.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And we can deal with it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, you know what, we're gonna have.
Awesome, thank you. You feel like we have direction on what to do?
Well,
You need a motion if we're gonna have a new policy on people staying later?
really, the only thing I brought this to you guys for was the potential of possibly paying for it. And that we talked about a lot of other things, so I'm satisfied.
Okay. Awesome. And you did it because I asked you to. I mean, this was me. I will absolutely own this. So, okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just have a quick question. My wife got disconnected on Zoom. She was asking
Oh.
if she could be let back in.
Yes. Yep, sorry about that. Certainly. Sorry about that. We try to continue to be available. All right.
God, no. 20 minutes.
Just start with the garage idea, because that was the winner.
I think that was a great one. Yes. So we are moving on to then, I believe there was nothing else for discussion items. Moving on to council comments.
No, we have
No,
discussion on the non-conforming
We do.
multifamily.
Sorry. Yes, we do. Sorry. Yes, we do. I'm like a whole page. Sorry. Because I print. Discussion on the non-conforming status of two-family and multifamily housing. Discussion item. Do you have anything to add to us from the attorney? Have you heard back from our attorney per our direction from the last meeting?
I have not. Obviously, Madam Mayor, you and I talked about putting this on the agenda. We went into closed session last time, felt it was a productive conversation. Obviously, we have a crowd here that probably, they enjoyed the rest of the. But they're sitting around waiting for this item. This has never been an easy topic. Similar to the daycare center, it's partially because the ordinances are screwed up. It's partially because the previous administrations perhaps didn't keep the best records. It's partially because
It's a whole range.
lots of issues going on here. So we're trying to resolve the issue. I think council is kind of leaning one way or the other. I didn't know if you guys wanted to discuss that. And discussion about moving forward.
Yes, Ms. Exton.
I would like to try and get this resolved. I would propose that we try to get a list of all the multifamilies, two families, legal non-conforming families, the houses, the households in the area. And because we don't have records and because it is so hard to prove when these places started, when they didn't start, I just think it's gonna be easier for us to start with a clean slate, get a list of these properties, and go from there. I just think that this thing is just getting way drawn out. And I would like to do that, but I also wanted, you did bring up the fact that there are regulatory ordinances and there are zoning ordinances, which is a use and more maintenance. So I just want to bring up too that there are things that need to be done with these properties that would help maintain them better and have them look better and have them appear better and things that we can do in that area to make it better for the people that also live there in that area. So I understand what we were trying to achieve in the first place. I just think it got way drawn out and way like gone in the wrong direction. But we did have to go and talk to our lawyer because there was a lawyer. So the one lawyer said we couldn't talk to you, and then so that's why we had to go talk into a closed session and talk to our lawyer because there already was a lawyer. So I just want to get this taken care of. So whatever we have to do, if we have to do it through a lawyer, let's get this figured out.
I feel like we have a little bit of confusion about the difference between regulatory and ordinances.
Right.
And also the
Uses.
also the idea of what, like what that threshold is. And the idea that if you are grandfathered or legal non-conforming, that somehow precludes you from having to do the regulatory things, which it doesn't. So like, we just had this thing with the pool, right? And I've had a pool for 10 years. And if my pool doesn't meet the things that we just passed, I'm gonna have to make it meet those things. Like that's with fencing and so on. And that's true of things like sidewalks. That's true of things like, how long your grass can be. It's true of things of like outbuildings for storage for rental units. It's true for parking. It's true, I mean, all of those things, because they weren't, if you're talking about a rental place and a business, those regulatory things still apply. Even if you're grandfathered as non-conforming, legal non-conforming. I mean, help me with how to articulate this, Ms. Atchison, the planning commissioner.
Well, like we said, there's a difference between a use and the regulatory, which is the maintenance of the parking, the outbuildings and
Right.
things like that. So if we take care of which we're supposed to be doing, is taking care of the ordinance for the use. That's what's grandfathered in, is the use, which is the multifamily
In an R1.
in an R1 district. So we have to, if we take that piece and take care of that,
But then you need to meet
then
the
we're good-
regulations.
yes, but then we'll take care of that. And like what was said is, yes, we do have somebody that can go out there and take care of the other things.
Right, and you
So-
would have to meet the regulations,
Yeah.
not for a residence, because you're not a residence,
Right.
but for a business.
Right.
Like, that's how it works.
So that's
So-
what got muddied, was the two pieces getting muddied in together.
So
So we kind of need to separate them. That's what I believe.
And maybe we weren't making it clear that our position is we can try to grant some legal non-conforming. If they're brought up to the regulatory standards that involve parking, sidewalks, outbuildings. I mean, that's my understanding.
Just to be clear, because Ms. Atchison was using some language, I want to make sure that we're on the same page. We're not making a declaration. This is not a legal determination.
Right.
No,
This is for argumentation.
Mhm.
well, in clarification of what regulatory means versus like an ordinance.
Part of it, but I also want to be clear that this is not simply a quid pro quo or something. like
Right.
No.
that. The city has been this entire time operating under the belief, the factual belief that some or all of these properties were not given proper legal non-conforming status. And my understanding, at this point, council is at least considering the possibility of granting that legal non-conforming status moving forward, but with certain requirements moving forward. That's my understanding of the situation. Obviously, this is part of what we're not deciding today,
Right.
because we still need some legal assistance to clarify. But at least that was my understanding of what you guys wanted to talk about.
Yes, and the idea of the regulatory pieces that will then have to be brought up to meet that. If we were to provide that granting of an ordinance, legal non-conforming, there's some regulatory stuff that is concerning to us. I mean, that is my understanding of that I feel like maybe hasn't been translated well. Am I
I would like to hear what the other members.
If I may, based on alphabetical order,
Please,
I'd like to make a comment. I think part of the discussion that you're having right now is stuff that we should have, even possibly in closed session again. If it takes a second closed session and a special meeting, I'm all for it. I also agree this needs to be taken care of and done soon, okay? I would like to have an answer for them by the next board meeting and have it taken care of.
so if what I hear is you're asking us to have the attorney come back and meet with
Yes,
us
I
in
am.
closed session?
After he has gathered the information that we asked him to gather. I understand there's an entanglement here. But right now is not the time to discuss it.
Okay, so just to clarify, you would like to see the manager, contact the attorney and have them come back
Yes, I would.
with Mr. Manager, is that something you feel like you can?
Well, I've contacted the attorney. I've asked him to give some clarification based on the conversation we had last time.
Right,
But he's a busy person and I've not heard back from him in these 6 days.
sure, but initially, I don't think we were specifically asking, the directive that we left with at the previous meeting was for him to inform you and then you to inform us. I don't know that we specifically said we would like you to come back to us for another closed session, which is my understanding of what
Whether
Mr.
he
Gross-
is here or not. Okay, if he's available, he should be here because he's making the determinations as presented. Okay. We just gotta put this to rest.
I understand. I'm trying to clarify what you're asking.
I'm telling you that I would like to have another closed session meeting prior to the next regular scheduled meeting of this board and come up with the conclusion.
Now that requires the attorney, am I correct?
Otherwise, we're in violation of open
We're,
meetings.
right, we can't do that without the attorney.
We can't go into closed session, but I could try to formulate a solution based on what I think you guys want.
Isn't that what our discussion is supposed to be now for us to kind of decide that?
Because we don't have the information that he was supposed to provide us.
We need to know what the regulatory things are that we can do, because I don't know that I want to agree to a list of 15 things. There might be only a couple things that I'm gonna be a stick in the mud about. So
So we need to, how can we go about figuring this out?
So what we had left with, the directive at the last meeting, was that the city manager would contact the attorney. The attorney was going to come back. We left the attorney with, we have some questions. The city manager contacted him and the attorney is supposed to get back and then he would disseminate that information to us. We cannot go into closed session to have a conversation about that unless we actually have the attorney here.
that's fine, but I don't know that we have anything to discuss right now because we don't have the list of things that would be considered regulatory.
Which is part of what the attorney was going to provide.
Right. Correct.
So the question that I have on the table is, do you want the attorney to come back and tell us that list? And we go into closed session? Or do you want the attorney to get the list to Mike? And then he disseminates it to us individually?
I personally don't have a preference on that.
Okay,
Either way.
what
I
I'm
just need
hearing
that
Mr.
information.
Gross say is he would like another closed session. That's what I'm
If
hearing.
that's what it takes. If that's what it takes. Otherwise, we're gonna spend an entire meeting sitting here debating the items that have come up and presented to the city manager.
Mhm.
A lot of these meetings stretch out way too long with various, communications that probably don't need to be. We need to stress it and get on this and get it done.
Okay,
The only issue I have is the fact that when we try to discuss certain things in that closed meeting, we were told that we couldn't discuss those things. They had to be done in open meeting. That's
That's
mine.
Which is
Yeah.
fine, which is why I'm saying like,
Right.
give us the information, so then
Yeah.
we can be like, no, there needs to be a shed, and then we can work that out. Or
Yes, we
a
do need
shed
the
isn't
information.
even
I
on the
agree.
table. We can't do that. We're not talking about it.
I
Like,
agree.
We need to know what our list is, so then we can all fight about it.
Right, so
okay, so
I
we
agree.
need to give the manager some directive of what it is that you would like to see happen going forward.
The city attorney coming back to us with a list of what is regulatory and what
Okay.
we can
So
require
you would like,
after telling them that they can have legal non-conforming.
you would like the attorney to come back and talk to us in a closed session.
No. I want the list. So if that was required, if we have to go into closed session, then we would do that. If you can just email us a list, then I want the list.
Madam Mayor, an ordinance is a living document.
It is.
We amend ordinances all the time.
We do.
And I don't see why we can't work on an amendment to the number 15 to update it. Because we can't ask these folks to tear down their house.
I don't think the ordinance is the sticking point.
It was created.
Right, but I don't think that's where we're having difficulty. I could be wrong.
I think you're right on.
Okay, my understanding is that our problem is not that we don't feel like we can adjust this as far as non-conforming. It's about what is going to be the regulatory things that we are requiring. Right? And that is the part where the attorney is trying to tell us. And then we need to decide how much of that is important. And then they will have to decide whether or not, because I'm getting from them, when they talk to me individually, that they don't think that the regulatory pieces apply if they have a non-conforming ordinance.
Grandfather.
Right. And I've tried to use an example of like, we change regulations all the time that you then have to, even if I've lived in my house for 20 years. If we used to have a regulation that you had to cut your grass when it was 18 inches, and we now have a regulation that you have to cut it when it's 6, I have to cut it when it's 6. I can't say I lived here when it was 20 years ago, when it was 18, so now that doesn't apply to me.
That's why I'm saying that I feel that the pieces are two separate issues.
They are,
They are.
which is what we established.
I don't know that we need to debate that. We
The
just need to
question
know what the
is,
stuff is that we can actually
Wit-
apply to them after the fact.
What is a regulation? What
Correct.
is an ordinance?
Correct. And then we can
And then which
correct,
parts of
debate
it,
which ones we want to
Right.
apply then.
so we need to give the manager some directive. Would you like to have the attorney come back?
I bow to the rest of the board, whatever they want.
I don't think we need the attorney to come back. I just think we need the information.
The
Yes,
list
we
of what
ju-
is
like-
regulatory.
Like Ashley keeps saying,
Come
the
up
list.
from the attorney, so
Yes.
it's- we don't need
we
them
don't
here.
need
We
him
don't
here.
have to have them.
Yes.
We don't need them.
we just need directives
had-
on what it is.
Right.
Okay, understood.
If we had to.
Yes, Miss Miss Mayor Pro Tem.
Don't make me the manager.
I'm sorry. I actually started to call you Miss Mayor.
Oh, are you quitting? Stop it. Okay, so, first of all, closed session versus Open Meetings Act, we can hear from the attorney in closed session. We can ask the attorney questions in closed session. We may not debate amongst ourselves during closed session.
Which I think
Correct.
we need to do.
Right, which we'll get there. So the list can be privileged information that's confidential from our attorney. We do not have to have the attorney here to have a closed session to read the list from the attorney. We may not discuss our opinions of that list, but if we wanted to go over that in closed session, we could. So I think what we're looking for is we want to know what is it that the crux of, I think, what I understood, is what do we actually have the right to require? Do we have the right to require that a sidewalk gets fixed, the house gets painted purple? Do we have 17 parking spaces? These are the things. So we need to know what that list is.
Mhm.
So, and I agree that this is dragged on for long enough that the thought of regulating, trying to figure out whose grandfather literally gave me a migraine. So we've,
But just to be clear, grandfathered on an ordinance does not negate the requirements for regulation.
right,
Nobody
and when
here
we,
is arguing that.
right, and when we initially had this discussion, and that lovely young couple came in and, you know, their realtor did a bunch of research and found out that this actually was at one point two separate structures. The intent, as I understood it of this board, was, okay, we are not opposed to a one-time gift of, we don't want to kick anyone out of their house. We don't want to encourage disinvestment. We just want to say, okay, you guys, you said you were in it, you're in it. Everything is safe, it's above board, it meets current code, and we're just gonna call it a day.
And then it has to meet
And then
the regulations for things like parking. It
That-
has to meet the right, you can't have a rental place with 12 occupants.
okay, yes,
But
one
that's what I
parking
want to
space.
debate though. I want to know what we have the right to require.
Sure.
And then I want to debate what we want to require from that list, because there might be some things on that list that I don't care
Right.
to require.
But a regulation for a business, because we grant basically a waiver, a get out of jail free card to say that you may have this business in a residential area does not mean that all of the regulations for the
I
business
get that, but
go
we
away.
already did that. We
haven't.
already allowed it. No, you did.
No,
It's been a lot.
no,
Okay. I
This
just.
is not a public comment time.
no,
So it's,
no.
I disagree.
so there was, in this ordinance change in 1982, so someone, all or none may have at that time already been grandfathered. But regardless, we are attempting, before everything got very, very muddy, to just grandfather it in, make sure it's safe, it's not a nuisance. You don't have 12 units in a one-story house or something ridiculous. You know, it's, if you have 12 units, you have enough parking for those 12 units.
Yeah, I agree with that,
that's
but
the
there's some
regulatory
other
piece.
things, like you said, for example, ridiculous example, if you could paint the house
House
purple,
purple.
do I want to make them do that even if I can? That's what I'm
Correct.
saying. I want the list, and then I want us to debate what is on the list and what I'm gonna say, no, this is no contest. You have to do this for me to give you permission, or for
Right.
me to be on board with that.
Because the
Or
regulatory.
this, I literally don't care about. It's regulatory, but I don't care. I
Sure.
literally don't
We
care.
may not need the house purple.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
What is wrong with amending the ordinance to make the folks legal?
We already agree that we want to make them legal non-conforming.
Yeah, but we
We
gotta
want
change
to
the
add a second
ordinance.
layer on
No,
top
you-
of it saying these are the things
I
that we
may.
would
No,
like
we
to
don't.
maintain.
We don't have to change.
If
the
I may.
ordinance. Yes.
If you amend an ordinance, it only is effective from the date that it's amended, and that's what we're talking about now. The ordinance was set in 82. Anything prior to 82, it was legal non-conforming, or would be legal non-conforming now, okay. Based on if we have the knowledge that that was the case, okay. Anything after that came in is just non-conforming. If you change the ordinance now, you now have an ordinance dated 2022. And everything prior to that, it stays the same as it was before.
It does
Anything
revert to
after
legal.
22 now applies to the new zoning ordinance.
And now you would say, oh, everybody in the R1 can have a multifamily,
Right.
which I
Well,
think we don't
well,
want to
I
do.
think- I
That's why
think-
we don't want to change the ordinance. And
I think things have gotten way too tangled. I think we need the information that is requested. To really have much any more discussion on it and determine what it is, whether it's in an open session or whether it's a closed session. I think it's something that has to be provided.
Okay,
I
so
do agree that there's a troublesome area where one type of, they're both regulatory. Okay, zoning requires what you can and what you can't do based on what the zoning approves, okay? It does regulate what you can do and where you can put it, okay? The other ones are police control. Basically, those are the ones that are enforced. Or various other things that are not in the zoning, okay?
So,
There is a point where the two of them have become entangled, and that's what we need to correct.
and just to clarify,
Well, that's why I'm saying they're two separate things. So can we not clarify right now, as soon as possible, that they're legal non-conforming? Can't we clarify that? Then we find out what the regulations are for all the other things, and that is an enforcement issue. Can we not separate it because they are separate?
I guess the difficulty is the enforcement piece. Because how do you enforce the regulatory coming up to meet those regulations? If you say you're legal non-conforming.
You can't tack it. You can't, I do not believe that you can tack it on to that. You can't tack it on to the legal non-conforming. It's separate. So
Okay.
let's just take care of the legal non-conforming as soon as possible, and then we'll worry about the regulatory. Then we'll worry about the other stuff and enforce that. I don't think we can hold these people up
There
for
seems-
these other things.
There seems to be some confusion
There
on
i-
if we grant that it somehow
It's not,
waives the
though.
regulatory.
It's
piece.
not.
Then we
But
need
you're
to hear from our
conforming?
lawyer, one way or another.
Yes, the conforming issue is the conforming, legal, non-conforming issue. And then the other stuff is all enforcement.
And if it's pushback from the other side, honestly. Okay, then,
Then we'll have to deal with it.
yeah, then it's not, they either can push back or they can't.
But the legal non-conforming is a whole separate piece.
I agree.
And that's already grandfathered in. So let's take care of that as soon as possible. And then go on the enforcement later.
So.
Cause
Ms.
it doesn't matter what list he brings back, that's that enforcement piece. That's separate
Well, I
from
think what
this.
we were trying to say is, and this is, if I understand Ms. Hamel correct, is that we understand that there may be some of those regulatory pieces that really are not fully possible
Right.
for a business in a place that was not supposed to be a business. So we would like to be able to have some wiggle room where we will say, well, we're not going to shut you all the way down, but we are going to make you do some. Like
Which that-
parking would be a piece of it.
And that's in the enforcement side.
Well, but how do you do that if you're not having that as a negotiation as part of granting the legal
Can't.
non-conforming?
I believe you can't. They're grandfathered in for a legal non-conforming. So just past that issue, we'll deal with the enforcement later, because it does. They do have to meet those things if they can. That has to be met. And once we give them this piece, legal non-conforming, I think that they're gonna be willing to do a little bit more on the enforcement
Well,
part.
And if they don't, then they'll get,
completely shut down.
well,
Or whatever the
however it
actions
is that
are
it
with the
goes if you don't go
regulations
on
of
the code.
policing.
You go to court.
Yep.
Get a determination. They receive citations. Could have court order that tells them it has to be done or else. There's penalties to pay.
Right. I don't think it's gonna make a difference if we hold them up on this.
My question
Okay, Ms.
Um,
Nixon?
for the attorney would be, I would want clarification on your point.
Yeah, I
And-
agree.
He did bring that at the
He
meeting.
did. That's
Right,
what
and
he
I
said.
do know that there was discussion regarding that about, if,
Careful, remember, closed session.
yeah.
The two pieces.
About those two pieces and how they may or may not relate to each
Mhm.
other. I have additional questions on that because perhaps you are correct and.
But this
perhaps
is a
that not.
discussion that we needed to
Sure.
have.
Absolutely.
So we do need to get those things clarified.
Mhm.
And
So
then
am
we
I
can,
hearing you say you would like to have the attorney come back?
no, I don't need to have the attorney come back. He can give us those answers through Mike.
Okay. Am I hearing,
We can
because
get a
I want to
letter.
like wrap this up and get us to a place.
I
where-
support everything that Lisa said.
Okay. Ms. Nixon?
I would be happy with a written communication from the lawyer that we can read in closed session and then discuss
Okay.
in open session.
We can actually even, I think, we can't debate, but we can ask clarifying
Absolutely,
questions of the
yes.
attorney
Correct.
or of the city manager.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to list up the regulatory things.
Well, and it was also about like, where is that line
Sure.
between
What can we
ordinances
require?
and what is the
and-
regulatory?
And that was written on that, information we got before we went in that closed session from him too.
Mhm.
If you look back on your paperwork.
Unfortunately, I was still working and unable to attend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it was what was sent
She's
out to us
saying it's
before
in
the closing meeting.
confidential,
whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Documents that, which I think I have a paper copy of, if it's helpful for you.
I may look that over later, yes.
Sure. Okay. I want to close this with a directive for the manager.
Madam Mayor, at this point, I think the majority of the board wants to hear from the attorney based on the issues that we had already discussed in closed session.
Mhm.
And until such time that we hear from the attorney, there is not going to be a resolution on that specific issue.
Correct.
I understand Ms. Atchison's point.
No,
Mhm.
and I understand that it's my point, but it's not what everybody else is thinking.
they need to get more information on it. And I will look at the information again and make sure that my point is still
And
my
I
point.
think
I
you're,
agree
I
with
think
you.
you're not wrong. And
Right.
I think that you are the planning commission person. I also think that, as the attorney pointed out, that line is not super clear.
Yeah, it's not. Shop.
It's
right
not
on the
super
side.
clear, which is part of what we were gonna get some clarification on.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't just a list. It was a list and a line that we needed clarification on.
Right.
So, Mr. Manager, you feel like the attorney gets back when the attorney gets back. I mean, we sent that as a directive and you said you contacted him several days ago. Yeah, so nobody said he has a turnaround time of 48 hours. It's not a
Right.
thing. So, yes,
I just want this done.
I think we all
that. I
do.
mean, we all want to have this done and we need happy people. It's been long and I just hope this attorney gets this done quickly so we can get this.
Yeah, you weren't here
I
either.
was not here, so I
I
think
have-
that's how we've always kind of, leaned anyway. It's just unfortunately, things don't happen overnight. You want to build a house, it's not gonna happen tomorrow. Everything is delayed by many people. So it's just a waiting game and
Okay, so
Never fun.
you all, though, are not asking for a closed session meeting with the attorney. You would
No.
like to have a closed session meeting to
With a
look
list. I don't even
at
know that we
the
need that.
I don't
the
even know.
content
That's
from
fine.
the attorney.
We
Oh,
don't
I
need a
thought-
closed session because we can't even
Read it.
we can't
Read it and then
discuss, we
discuss
can't
it
do
internally.
anything.
Yeah.
So let's all take the information in
Hmm?
that we get.
Well, I think we can discuss to the extent that the city manager could
We could ask clarifying
explain,
questions.
But he can do that in
We
open
can do that
session though.
here. That's discussing a legal opinion and.
Yeah, not so much, yeah.
Well, let's see how about we get the information? He can do like his, like he does his manager's
Sure.
directive or whatever, and
And then.
and
you
if
can
we
make a-
need, if we need a closed session,
So-
then we'll have a closed session.
We'll make it as a recommendation of the manager on whether or not it should be a closed session.
And
That
I'm
was-
sorry,
That was my point in saying if need be.
right.
Okay.
Mike,
my
did you
desire
want to
that
say
you have
more? 'Cause I
unpaid
kinda, I'm
meetings.
sorry, I cut you off.
And
Are you
I'm
sure?
just trying to get us some directives so we can move out of this. Are we there?
Yes.
All right. I'm trying. All right. Community event calendar. We're on to communications. Anything anyone want to comment about? We talked about the,
Thank you for coming.
we've talked about the concerts in the park, I think have been going very wonderfully. I think Counselor Powell, you were at the Comedies of Kent.
Yes, I thought the Back to the Future was a big success.
We have quite a few people.
I think they said 125.
So that's seems like quite fabulous.
And Back to the Future 2 is next week, so.
There were a good amount at the concert.
Probably
So-
about 150 maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say when they're really spread out. I'm not sure how to. And the social district is going well. I've seen no difficulties or problems with that. Anything else for the community event calendars? Community events going on?
Sidewalk sales are Saturday, 10 to 3. Garden Club is having a plant sale at the community garden. I mentioned that.
At Saturday?
Saturday, yeah, 10 to
By the
3.
what?
Community garden right across from the
The post office, the flower garden there, and if, like, I'm gonna bring some plants to donate, from 10 to
3.
10 to 3. So if people want to buy plants. And then the library is doing the sidewalk
Chalk art in the
chalk
morning.
art in the morning to hooray. for
That's always
kids. Super
Some of
fun.
those kids are some amazing artists. They're just awesome.
Absolutely. So anything else? the calendar for 2022, which has the dates, I believe, for the next year, because we're ending our July 1 is our new fiscal year. The painting flag update, anything?
Yeah, Rose has got something.
I'm hoping the back portion isn't the color that was indicated in the brown, yeah.
It's got like 5 different
With
colors.
the start in the picture, yeah.
Simply use the currently existing colors.
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping that's not the intended, so, okay.
In my notes, you would see that it's going to match.
Right.
the new fire station.
Is that like?
Is
kind
that
of-
the same color red the other one is?
Yeah.
If so, we did our best to match. We have the color swatches in my office. If you'd like.
Yeah, I
Oh,
have to
yeah,
go
because
get
I
it.
really need to
Make sure it's
tell you what
done.
color. I don't even know. I know hair color, I just don't know a paint color.
Anything else on that?
You're so fancy. No.
Community newsletter, the Main Street Bridge update. Mr. LaRose, you got anything for us? You've been here forever. I'm
No, they
glad
started
you're home.
driving pilings today. I'm sure everybody heard it.
We did, yes. Kaboom, kaboom. We're having a
We
hard
lost
time
ya.
hearing you, friend.
Nope.
I think you might be on mute. You need to.
No,
unmute
that was all I
yourself.
had to add.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks, Bill.
Awesome. Yeah, it's very exciting. We're looking at probably just after Red Flannel Day, that's gonna be open. Is that what I'm
Can't put
hearing?
a time frame on it yet. It's too early in the construction phase.
Okay. Then
Will it be done before the fire truck?
I got nothing. Cedar Springs, Historical Society Museum letter, very nice. They do fabulous things there. Option to purchase real estate at 333 Ash Street. Not sure
That was an agreement that you guys had previously agreed to and we had signed, so I put it in your communication.
okay,
Oh, very good.
yes.
Okay,
I was gonna say, I swear we did this, but we did. Okay. Advantage Real Estate Agency Agreement for West Street Properties, that's the, we voted on at the last meeting. Outdoor warning siren activation letter. City manager report. Okay. Department of Public Works Infrastructure Alternative Operational Maintenance Report. We've read those. We had our folks here. Any questions, comments? Police Department. Nice to see Sergeant Probst
Live and in person.
live and in person, although
We've had a busy couple weeks.
Anything exciting?
Yeah, we've had quite a few things. Go over them real quickly.
please.
Discussion. Marijuana shops that broken into 2 of them. Again, we had a very fast response to those. That's Cafe. Officers are already en route to check the other ones when alarm dropped at the Chaganja. Our officers arrived on scene, saw subjects running around the building, tried to pursue with them. Lost them up at White Creek in 131 area. Rockford assisted us, finding the vehicle at 10 Mile 131 area. They got into pursuit with them as well. Or they terminated the pursuit. We've got some great additional leads to follow up with that.
There's video is my understanding.
There's video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
but just,
appreciation.
there's some video
We
that,
just had retail fraud this week at Tractor Supply, similar incident. Our officer was flagged down, was right in the area. He's the subject's running, apprehends one, that dog track apprehended another one.
nice.
Found out a U-Haul truck was involved that MSP assisted us on and stopped on the freeway.
Nice.
And they had multiple items in that truck stolen from other jurisdictions. So 3 arrested on that one. Last night we just had a MDOB at the school involving pickleball courts. Nets were damaged. Vehicles in the area, tires slashed, and just kind of damage everywhere. That is probably. We have an ongoing issue, the manager and I, along with all the other officers in town and all around are dealing with homeless person in our part of Cedar Springs that is being pretty disruptive to all the citizens in Cedar, that we're doing the best we can dealing with that. Working on it, we've got some reports from the prosecutor's office looking for charges. And that's after exhausting all of our meetings.
I would say
Last
we're
several
trying
months.
to get services
Yeah.
and
Well, they've already been, we've exhausted all of that. We've got 60 complaints in the last 2 months of all
Right.
this subject.
and they're refusing services, correct? So it's not,
Thank you.
not trying to get services. So.
And the Cedar Brewery got the window smashed out.
Aw,
We arrested that guy right after.
good job. Thank you. And I also now feel like I am justified in my concerns about our clerk. So
You never know.
you just, yeah, it seems to be something in the air right now.
No stolens up here?
So marijuana shops, I believe in is a direct correlation with having a rash of stolen vehicles, a rash of crime, mostly down in the city. I believe this is probably the same subject, with steal cars nonstop, you're getting pursuits every day, shootings regularly. That same group, I think, brought themselves up here. in our area. Hopefully with us chasing them right from the get-go, they won't be back.
Sure.
You were hoping we were a softer target.
Yeah.
Being more rural. Okay, thank you. And thank you to all of the county sheriffs that have been so right on that. I greatly appreciate it. And just to be clear, nobody has been hurt in any of these. I mean, that's always my,
We also got some stuff fighting with the, once we're back with supply.
oh. Okay. Good. I mean, not good that he that got scratches, but good that,
It's largely okay.
yeah, mostly okay. So glad to hear that. Moving on to fire department. Does Marty got anything for us?
If you can hear me, I do not have anything.
We
I
can hear
will,
you.
I will answer any questions, but I do not have anything.
There's a new sign. I have to go get a picture, I think,
I know what.
at the fire department. Am I right?
We call it a medallion. It's hanging underneath the lights on the front of the building by the flagpole. That was generously donated by, I'm not sure of the name, the canning company on Main Street that used to be the old CarQuest building. That's real good work of art that was generously donated, and we finally got it hung underneath the lights.
I've tried to go over 3 times to go get a picture and I keep getting interrupted. So, but I hear it's lovely. Yes,
Yes,
we'll go with
Okay.
yes. All right, anything else then?
I have one more question from
Sure.
Marty.
yes,
Do you guys, you're still doing that like food pantry kind of thing on Thursdays?
the Feeding America food truck
Yeah,
comes in Monday, July 18th. I believe pickup is at 5, but we gather a little early to prepare the boxes and unload the truck. So we will be there at 4, but I believe pickup starts at 5.
I just wanted to know if you'd take volunteers for that.
If you're willing to get your fingers dirty and lift some heavy boxes, we'd love to have you.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
Supporting that program. It's so needed in our community. And thank you. I know Darla does a lot of work with that also. So thank you.
We're glad to do it.
City clerk?
I don't have much. You guys have my report, just a quick update. April DeSess will be starting Monday as the deputy clerk. So we are very much looking forward to having her. My office has just been so busy. So we're looking forward to having some help there. And just a reminder, public accuracy testing is Monday at 4:30.
And then elections, because that will be before our next meeting,
August 2nd,
or August 2nd.
7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Polls are open.
So show up, vote.
I'll be here with Raiden.
And then the finance director.
I too, like Rebecca, have been extremely busy, without a helper as well. The deputy finance director, we have made an offer and she will be starting August 8th. So we'll introduce her at the next council meeting. So excited to get her, on board and starting as well.
Awesome. Any questions for the finance director? Code enforcement, you have lots of things. Any questions on that? Building inspection, boarding commission minutes. And with that, we will move on to council comments. And I will go in alphabetical order as opposed to outside in. So Miss Atchison.
Well, I won't be too vocal because I've been really vocal. I want to apologize if I seemed really vocal. I'm just stressed out with the whole situation and I just want everything to be taken care of on both sides. And I really appreciate Mike for trying to get our city cleaned up and for doing all the things they did, even putting together that agreement for the lease that, he does a lot of things for us that that he doesn't have to do. And so I'm hoping after we get the two other people that we're gonna get some help from Mike too. Mike, if you got anything, anybody?
No.
Nobody's looking.
The person that we
To
were
come on in.
hoping to get fell through, that we were hoping to share.
Yes.
That was a while back though, wasn't it?
I'll be at a conference this next week and sometimes these students will.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, hopefully that will help you too, because I know that you're swamped, so I really appreciate everything you do.
Paid intern could be an option if,
Intern really wouldn't be capable of doing the high level work that I would need them to do.
yeah, I didn't know if they could take some of the stuff off your plate that is the lower level work that,
Really, at some point, it's not even about assisting me, it's about me teaching them to bring them into the profession, which is also an acceptable thing, but
Takes time.
But then it's one more thing.
more of my time.
Yeah.
right. Okay. Doesn't actually take anything off the plate, it actually adds something to it.
And that's it. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Gross.
I also want to thank each of the areas of our management in the city, including the hourly employees for everything that they do. With the nature of things, zoning, police work, fire work, board members are being scrutinized very heavily and a lot of times unfairly. The best we can do is the best we can do and try to be fair and equal with everything. And I think that is a point that everybody here at the township, at the city is trying to do. Times are challenging. And again, it's tough to try to make sure that everybody is safe in what they do, including the rest of us in our lives. But at the same token, we can't be running afraid all of the time. We still have to live our lives and do our jobs, and I think that's being done. So I appreciate it all. Thank you very much.
Ms. Hamel.
I also want to say thanks to the city workers. You guys are awesome. And to everybody on the board, I want to apologize for my opinion because I have them. But I did enjoy the, spirited debate, so, yeah, it's never personal. I just like when everybody is pitching in with their opinions, because that's why we were elected, is because we have opinions and we should give them and offer them. So I enjoyed today's meeting. Thank you.
Ms. Nixon.
Well, first of all, thank you all for bearing with me until the Excedrin kicked in. Thank you again for that, Mike. That was much better. But no, I don't think that we ever need to apologize for each other for spirited debate and opinions that vary. I appreciate Ms. Atchison's input. I would not have thought that perhaps the ordinance and the regulatory piece could, should, or would be separate. So that is something I need to investigate more. And hopefully.
I have the paper documentation.
Yes.
for you.
And hopefully we will be able to put this to bed sooner rather than later, because it's getting about as fun to talk about as marijuana.
Right.
So I
need some marijuana after that.
I mean, seriously, so hopefully soon. But thank you all, and that's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Powell.
The blood drive, our Cedar Springs blood drive has been running kind of short, so if anybody can spare a pint or two on Tuesday from noon to 7.
At
And
the library?
yeah, at the library. Pardon me. And just really been enjoying the concerts and the movie and all kinds of wonderful things going on in Cedar Springs. And thank you for everybody for helping to organize and work on those things, especially you, Mike.
Do you remember what you have to
worked
weigh?
No.
Feels like it's 110.
I love it when you ask that question.
Ham problems right there.
There's a threshold. It's changed.
Yes, but you have.
And I change and I'm in anyway.
I'll give you some fat, yeah.
I mean, well,
Yeah, she's waiting on baby breath, or no, Renee is.
Renee. Anything else?
No, I'm
Okay.
done.
Renee, Ms. Race.
I feel like I've been gone for 6 months.
You have.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, so I kept quite quiet because I think that I just wanted to get here for what went on even last week. I know it's just we've never had to do something like this, at least the newer, so we just hope to get this in order, however it turns out, and we can, not everyone's gonna be happy no matter what. We all know that, but we just have to get it together and get moving forward so that we can just put it behind us. And I know it's been a lot of work for everyone. Thank you for everything. Hopefully we can get some, I mean, I can come and help you if you need me to, because I'm pretty tough. You need me to walk you out to the car, so. No, that's all.
I feel pretty good about our election workers if they're here. It's that you being alone that's concerning to me.
I'll stay with you, Rebecca.
Yeah, I like that too. I think that's an excellent solution. I would just like to say we have this election coming up. Our districts and our regions are very different. So I appreciated Frank Lafata who's running for the 91st. We are now in the 91st, which includes, it's this little sliver of Kent County. It's mostly Montcalm County, and then it swings over and picks up Ionia County. It gets Spalding. We are now in the State Senate District 33, which takes us like out to Mount Pleasant. And through like that Lansing area, we're no longer connected to Grand Rapids. It's no longer that Justin Amash, Peter Meyer, like he will not be on our ballot. And then the so 33, and then our US House is now 2 instead of 3.
It's starting to, I'm starting to figure all this out. It's
Right,
just-
we've been talking about it a lot, and I keep having to tell people, like, I
Some
keep
know.
explaining to people, go look at the map,
Mhm.
because it's very, very different.
Yes, and it's, and
And you should know that
yeah,
when you're looking at who you're voting for and what that, you know, is. And I'm not saying anybody should vote for a certain person or not a certain person, but you just need to know who your representative people are.
yes.
Because they're not the options that you're used to. They look very, very different because we're in a very different, under districting, redistricting, it's very different.
It sure is.
So, and I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's different. So we need to pay attention to that. And then, thank you to the city manager. He has had a ridiculous amount of conversations with me about all of these things. I appreciate Sergeant Probst and the city manager, entertaining me with my concerns about the safety. Like I said, I have had an experience that makes me think that there might be an issue. And I want to make sure that there's not. And it's important because elections and water and safety and fire, and this is why we're here. It's why we're here. And they all make it happen. And I had all kinds of people contacting me about our police department, and I heard there was a yes, and they responded immediately. And no one was hurt. So thank you for that. Thank you for keeping our community safe in that capacity. And thank you for making these elections happen. Remember to show up and vote. And Mr. Manager, thank you for the ridiculous amount of hours you have put in to try to make these things work for us. And with that, we're adjourned. 10:04.